Good evening, everybody, and welcome to round 6 of this year's ASR GT3 World Championship. And for the first time, powered by Endurance Chat, a thoroughly biased, overly passionate podcast about sports cars. And well, GT3s are sports cars, and that's precisely why we are here and why we are glad to have those guys from Endurance Chat on board for us the rest of the season. Well, we're over the halfway mark. We've got 5 rounds to go. The train stops here at Imola tonight for 90 minutes before proceeding on for the doubleheader at France, another trip back to Italy for Monza, and then off to the desert for Bahrain at the end of the year. The second of the 90-minute encounters for the season tonight, the first one having taken place at Interlagos 2 rounds ago, and the man in form, Damon Woods, shooting for 3 straight wins from 3 straight appearances. To take you through tonight's 90-minute Enduro, myself, Steve DeVries, Josh Baggs, and Michael Zalavari.
Evening, Nether. Evening, Michael. It's good to be here, back again quite quickly with 90 minutes at Imola, a quite famous track that we have been lucky enough to see on the F1 calendar the last couple of years, thanks to COVID, and now we're finally coming back to it as well in GT3s.
Yes, good evening, Bagsy. Good evening, Steve. It's quite an exciting circuit, one of my favourite circuits, an all-time classic, and a track that serves itself well for the SRO GT World Challenge Europe that runs a sprint round here as well. So sports car heritage, racing heritage, and I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad to bring Endurance Chat along as well. It's been a lot of fun, of course, commentating on these series, and to be a part of it, to be a backer of it now is it's a real privilege. So thank you for allowing me to jump on board as well.
No, big pleasure, guys. The word went out a couple of weeks ago with Antara sort of pulling the pin, I guess, so to speak, and taking their little sponsorship thing with us. But their money still remained in the pot, and the word went out to say, look, we want some small businesses to come on board, and glad to have a passionate podcast about sports cars, I think, come along and support a sports car sim racing league and series. So we'll dive a bit more into the Endurance Chat side of things a bit later on in the night. Give you guys a chance to explain yourselves, but great to have you on board. Great to have Flood back in the box as well. He very thoroughly missed the last round at the Nürburgring. It's been 3 long years since we've been to Imola in GT3, so this is a big learning curve for a lot of guys that were around back in the day, but they sort of haven't had much of a chance to reacclimatise to this in the last 3 years.
It's a very tricky circuit as well, especially for 90 minutes and putting it on the limit. There's so many places where you just feel like you can go a bit faster, but you end up either getting a track cut or in a barrier. The latter obviously being much worse than the former, but in the 90-minute format, those track cuts are going to be almost as bad, because once you start accumulating drive-throughs, you are not going to be having a happy race.
Absolutely, and on top of that as well, it's a circuit that's very difficult to stay in the zone for. There's a lot of very tricky braking zones that go through corners or slight bends. There's a lot of corners that open out or are blind, and it's very difficult to stay in the zone and not make those mistakes. So for 90 minutes, it's going to be quite a challenge to stay on the ragged edge for that amount of time.
Yeah, especially given this track is steeped in, I guess, I wouldn't say folklore, but it's steeped in it's controversy, it's steeped in accidents, it's steeped in a lot of things on top of the racing pedigree and the racing heritage that it has. It's very narrow, it's very fast, and it's an all-out blast in terms of going for hell for leather, but also you've got to have the concentration about you. The concentration element is extremely high at this circuit because, as Bagsy alluded to, one mistake, the walls are waiting. There's you can see here on the front straight, the front straight wall very close. The sand traps are waiting. The anti-cut curbs will kick the cars around. It'll get them up on 2 wheels. You get the chicanes wrong. You're going to have a very difficult time recontrolling the car to get back into shape, losing plenty of time in the process. So it is not an easy challenge, let alone for 90 minutes.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I find most difficult about this circuit, I ran a few laps a bit earlier in the practice session, is that the amount of slow corners that there are very few, but the thing is they all lead into very long straights. So even just a small mistake in one of those slow corners rather, and you end up losing tenths seconds of time at the end of it. So it's going to be all about the mental game tonight. And throw strategy into that, throw possibly safety cars into that. We've got an 18 car field, so there's going to be plenty going on over the course of the 90-minute race this evening.
There sure will be. Well, let's have a quick look at where we've been and where we are tonight. So the rundown so far, it started in Melbourne, the sprint round at Albert Park. The wins to Luke Rosella, so they're his only 2 wins for the season. Started off with a bang, led the championship at that stage. Then we headed off to continental Europe for the first time to the Circuit do Estoril in Portugal, where it was the scene of Greg Tara's first ever ASR victory, and he had a very, very big smile on his face after that one. Over to the US for another occasion that we've been to a few times. Laguna Seca, the wins split on this occasion. First GT3 win for Termo, second ASR win ever for Greg Tara. Then the run of form started. Damon Woods came into the series with a bang. The first 90-minute race in Brazil, and he won it by over a minute. Utterly dominant was the Mercedes-Benz. He made it 2 from 2 in Germany at the Nürburgring in the 70-minute short endurance format. And tonight, he shoots for 3 straight as we head to Imola, just outside of Bologna to the southeast. And the very, very famous, very, very fast, very, very iconic. Here it is. Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari, otherwise known as Imola. Bagsy, we've been here in Formula One in real life this year, and for the second time in 2 years, actually delivered some really, really good racing. It's been a long time between drinks since we've had this on an ASR calendar, though.
It definitely has, and it was. I don't actually. I can't really recall what happened in that race last time we were here, but it is almost 5 kilometers in length here, 16 turns, and as Michael was saying earlier, most of them are fast, most of them are flowing. We've got the onboard in the background here. You can see coming up to basically the only proper hard stop on the circuit apart from the chicane later on, but it is a absolutely full-on track. It is a very speedy track, and you can see down the bottom there the quali records are 141.2 and a 142 in the race, both held by Jamie Snow. Probably not going to get touched today, but you never know. We've got Damon Woods, who has been the dominant force in the last few races. He has set a 142 dead so far in practice, which is just ticking down now. So depending on if there's any sandbags or not, they're practicing the Mercedes-Benz strategy of the last few years in F1. Will there be released, or is he actually pushing it? He is a whole second ahead of the next closest, so I think he might have been pushing there, but who knows?
No, who knows indeed. And you can see, as you said, those 2 records there. Jamie Snow was the winner of that race the last time it happened, the 90-minute race around Imola. It was actually the very first broadcast for ASR. Well, back then it was known as AMS. So I was on this channel in GT3s. I think it was myself and Matt Scruff Williams were the 2 people calling that one. And it was a good packed field, and I think Lewis Wedding was in there as well, and Jamie Snow took the chocolates on that one in the Ferrari 488 GT3. But as you said, it might be a little bit of a bridge too far to see some of those track records go. But you never know. You never know. So we'll wait and see what happens. Flood.
Something I just want to quickly draw everyone's attention to on that graphic. The estimated laps tonight, 50 to 53 is what we're expecting. And that's going to be right at the very edge of what these cars can achieve on a 2-stop strategy. I was dabbling around the practice, talking to a few people, getting a bit of information. And it seems that the front engine cars in particular are going to struggle to hit 17 laps a stint comfortably. You times that out by 3, and that's 51 laps. So it might be the case that we might see a few late splash and dashes, 1 or 2 people conserving fuel. If there's a safety car, that might help a few people out. It's going to be a very intriguing battle, and the fuel strategy is going to be the one that I'm going to keep an eye on as we get to the latter stages of the race.
I think he'll be handing over the reins as usual to Bagsy to do all the fuel numbers. He's got that book of his. I think it's got page after page after page of everything that we've been through, every track, every note about who stopped when and how long they were stationary for. And I think he's going to be furiously scribbling down the notes. But you're absolutely right. And you've got to factor in as well, if there is no safety car, which they've been few and far between in some of the races so far, we haven't had very many of them. You've also got to factor in the out lap as well, or the sighting lap that brings everyone around for the formation rolling start too. So it's not exactly rocket science to work out that this is going to be a very, very tight fuel mileage race.
Absolutely. Just, I have a question for Bagsy. Is it the same book each time? Is it the same book when you're doing these pit stop counting?
Yeah, it's just slowly building up over time. I'm probably
So-
going to run out of space soon, honestly. But
What's the earliest race you've got in that book? I'm just curious. I just wanna see. Have you got it written down?
Me too.
I
Now I'm very
actually
curious.
I don't have it open yet because I've got it.
Oh.
I've been cleaning today, so it's actually going to struggle to find it quickly. So I'd forgotten about it, honestly. So I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. When you find it, you've got to let us know. We have to know. We have to know for science.
You know, we do
Yeah,
have
definitely.
to know.
I'm curious as well.
Yeah, we definitely do have to know. It looks like the driver's briefing is just getting underway at the moment, and actually, I think it's actually just finished up. So there's not a lot of time left to go, and I think we'll be over to the quali session. Actually, it's just ticked over to quali now, but I can see all the drivers are still lined up in the chat channel, having a chin wag to Brendan Ross and Lewis Wedding, who are taking them through all the particulars. There were a couple of just general notes that came out of the GT3 drivers briefing notes earlier in the week, and most of those were centered around pit entry and the pit exit. Once they were all sorted, I think the only other real ones were just mainly the usual stuff around, if you make a mistake and you knock somebody off the course, you've got to make sure you give it back. There really isn't a lot to go through for a track such as this. The pit entry, the pit exits are really the obvious ones. I think the pit entry is very, very high speed entry, and it's directly off the racing line as well. So you're coming down from Ravazza 2, the last corner, down the front straight, and pretty much peel off to the right at speed. It's not like the old days where they had the little final kink chicane, which you can see just on your screen there. It's just behind those orange traffic cones. The pit lane used to sort of come off at a 90 straight in shoot, and then you would go through the final chicane. So it's a bit different to what it used to be back in those days of Formula One. And then the pit exit basically feeds out into what is probably the highest speed part of the course, the approach to turn one. So drivers will be getting warned to stay right on the pit exit, make sure they've established where everybody else is before anything goes on, because the last thing we want to see is a la Valtteri Bottas and George Russell from earlier this year all over again.
And
I've
you're
acquired the
exactly
book.
right. Oh, you found the book.
Yes. Well, it appears that I have split stuff over two books, so it's changed. This season's in a separate book because I had confused them. But the first one I've got here is, I didn't date it because I'm silly, but Sebring GT3. Sorry, Sebring GT3.
Sebring GT3.
I know why I said Sebring GT3. Back here, I don't know what.
That would have to be a 2018 one you've got there, Bagsy. I think that
I believe so.
We did. I think it was Matt Webb, if memory serves me correctly, was the winner of that GT3 race in 2018. I think he had a Nissan GTR was the one there, because I think we also did it the season after, which was the World Endurance Championship season, where we had the LMP2s and the GT3s together. So there was actually 2 trips to Sebring in that year.
I'll be honest, the notes are a lot worse back then and a lot less.
Is it the old doctor's handwriting analogy coming back in here?
Oh, my handwriting's always awful, but in this case, it is just I wasn't tracking pit stops and stuff as well back then. I was just putting down general notes for the race and things like the Lambo got given 50 kilos of BOP and the GTR lost 50. And if I remember correctly, that in that race, because I don't know who won it, but I'm pretty sure it was a GTR romping away from the field in that one with that.
Yeah, I think it did end up getting the weight penalty after all of that was done as well. And I said, I'm pretty sure it was Matt Webb who was the man who won it. I think it might have been his first or second race, I think it was, in the series at that point in time. That's really testing my memory, but I'm pretty darn sure it might have been him who was the winner on that Sebring occasion. And I think it may have been the round after this round in 2018 as well, because the first round of GT3s was ever held was at Bathurst. And then this, which was never ever broadcast, but we have actually got the data in live races for that. I actually want to give a huge shout out to the gentleman who runs Sim Results. I forget his name now, but he had that data from years and years and years ago. We were able to get our hands on it to upload it into our own live races, so that was fantastic to see. So yeah, that was the first race ever for GT3s as we're getting ready for qualifying to start now. And then the second round was Imola, and I'm pretty sure the third round was Sebring. Third round was Adelaide, fourth round was Sebring. Back in the year. So there's a lot going on.
First one I have dated is GT3 from Yas Marina in April of 2019.
Oh, is that the famous Glenn Miles penalty race?
That is indeed the famous Glenn Miles penalty race.
100% correct, and I know this because I have a little tally here on the side of how many drive-throughs Glenn Miles had, and it was 12.
Yeah,
Boki was also in that race and competing, but he only got 6, so he got half as many. But yeah, it was that's the first one that was actually written down.
Yeah, that was the race, I think, won by Brett Foley as well, if memory serves me correctly. He was in a dice, I think, with Lewis Wedding for that year's championship. I believe
so.
Yeah, there was plenty of good racing in that year. And that was actually the first time that there'd been experiments as well with the twilight into dusk format, which actually looked really good under the lights at Abu Dhabi as well. I think that was a 2-hour race, I think, as well, all the way back in the day. It was plenty of, that was when we were still running the 2-hour format.
Yeah, I think it may have been, I'm just going to see. Although there are only 2 pits, no, sorry, there are 3 pit stops for each person, so that would imply a 2-hour race, yeah.
Yeah, that would be, if it was 3 pit stops, and yeah, they would have been stopping about roughly every half an hour to make that happen. Now, there's a little bit of shenanigans going on at the front here. Nathan Higginson was the first man to go out of the pit lane. And then you've got the ERT Benzes, you've got Xavier Kokai on screen. Damon Woods has just gone through to be the lead.
Everyone's gone out, it's an angry pack.
Yeah, to be the lead car in that queue. As we pick Woods up now. And then you've got Dane Liccardo, I think, in the GTR behind Higginson as well. I mean, he's ERT affiliated now from what I understand, but there's a big angry pack at the moment trying to work out where they all go and where they all sort of sit. So this is going to be a little bit interesting for how qualifying starts. But Damon Woods has got the headlights on and he sets off towards Tamburello chicane.
Higginson is going to be getting a nice double toe here from both Damon Woods and Xavier Kokai. So this is going to be very interesting. If Kokai has a moment in the background, it's what if it's going to help or hinder him tonight?
Yeah, he had a bit of a bad line through the opening corner. You could just see that Woods just sort of glided the car, just gently touching the apex at turn 1, a little bit more at turn 2, but Kokai got it all wrong sort of in the background. And a slide job there as well off of Tosa.
Yeah, not the cleanest exit of that slow corner for Damon Woods, but he has set the fastest time to the first sector thus far. Now through Piratella. Deft on the throttle there, using a lot of the curb on the exit. You can use that here before we get to a trap cut. And my favourite corner on the track, Aqua Minerale. Down to third gear for Damon Woods, uses a lot of curb on the outside and then slings it back up over the sausage curbs, and then he'll hit the second sector mark just coming up here. It's a 103.6. So very quick to the second sector mark as he comes through the tight chicane at Variante Alto now.
Just see it unsettled over the bumps as well, those anti-cut curves. He just sort of rode them as best that he could from the onboard, but you could see just the car get a little bit rattled as it bounced over them. You'll rattle the fillings out of your teeth if you get it too aggressively. A few cars behind him had sort of suffered the same fate, if not worse. And you can see them there, those little yellow sausages just on the inside of the curve. You want to stay away from them as much as possible and straighten your run to the line. He did a 42 flat in opening practice, and his opening benchmarks are 43.4, so we've still got a little way to go to get back to those 42s that we saw late in the practice session.
So yeah, that's quite a way, actually. Go ahead,
Quite
Banksy.
off the pace. Yeah, I was just about to say, quite off the pace as well. Xavier Kokai didn't finish his lap either. Termo's gone into second with a 144.9, so still a second and a half between Damon Woods and Termo there. So I'm wondering if the track the track conditions have changed a little bit potentially.
There has been. There's actually a car backwards off the final chicane. It's Lachlan Burke. It's one of the AAR Bentleys. So we're going to have a look at that one on the replay graphic. We haven't had a chance to update the new replay for this year, but we can just see here. We're just rewinding the replay here. What happened to Burke? Oh, he's had a bit of a moment come through the final corner. Actually, he's got wide. That's what it was. The game's sort of not doing it justice as to what's happened there. He's actually run wide off the final corner and he's just dropped it off the exit there. So that's how all that goes down to be. And we continue on our way for the better part of the session. We're actually halfway through this session already.
Yeah, so it goes quick.
It goes fast, and that's the important thing. The lap being, a minute and 3/4, there's not a lot of time to get the laps in. So you sort of got to almost sort of work out, do I want to do one run or do I want to do 2 runs? Do I want to do a run of 2 and then a run of 1? You've got to really plan your attack and how you want to do this, because you're realistically only going to get about 3 or 4 flying laps at best.
Speaking of 3 or 4 flying laps at best, Damon Woods is about to come across the line to finish his second flying lap. He's purple to Sector 1 and Sector 2, and he's probably going to improve here. Does 43 flat. So you might have noticed that they're about a second away from where they were in practice. Damon Woods said about a 42 flat in practice. That's because the entire weekend was reset. So that means the track condition as well was reset back to 0.
There we go.
So that's why the times are a little bit away from their absolute maximum. Lewis Wedding purple to the second sector. Let's see where he is. He's coming through Ravazza. A little wide on the entry there. And the second part, not quite over the apex, but does get a nice run. He's in the Porsche though, which has been struggling with top end speed. It is the kindest on its fuel though, so that might play into his advantage later, but he comes across the line. Does he improve? No, he doesn't.
Greg Tara was right behind him. He didn't improve either and gave up the ghost pretty much straight away. Wedding was purple, as you said, in the middle sector there, but it wasn't purple by very much, and it was actually a slower last sector is what sort of has done the dash for Wedding in that particular occasion. Here's a nice improvement. Steve Warwick, he's up to P5. Now, we've been singing this guy's praises for a number of rounds now. He really seems to gel with the car. He seems to be able to drive it nice and cleanly and nice and straight, and even by his own admission, he prefers these cars over some of the other cars that he's driving in the ASR series as well. And when he's up there in the top half a dozen spots, I can't say I blame him for making a statement like that. He was actually as high as 3rd earlier on in the practice session. Ultimately fell down, I think, to about 6th or 7th as everybody sort of improved very, very late. What's he doing on this particular lap? He has gone PB in Sector 1, but he's just dropped away in Sector 2 here. So not up on his PB to the Sector 2 split. It's just a standard one. It's not his slowest sector, but it's not his fastest either. And he'll get enough time, even if he goes back to the pits, he will get enough time to get another lap in.
Something we didn't touch on with the weekend being reset and therefore the track being reset is that the drivers had been building up to and getting used to having a certain amount of grip available to them. So that's going to definitely cause some issues for some people. Some people aren't quite as adaptable. They like to be able to work their way into the weekend, work their way into the track as it evolves. And having to suddenly go back to square one here and relearn your car in lower grip conditions is very difficult when it's a very sudden change like this.
Yeah, it's going to be quite jarring for any of the drivers, truth be told. Your braking point has to be another extra 5 or 10 meters closer. Your turn-in's not going to be as jumpy. Your throttle application has to be a bit smoother. We've got Steve Bolger on screen at the moment. He's improving to the second sector. He's been one of the drivers that has adapted better to this change in track condition. It took a little bit of a narrow entry there to Ravazza 1. Just a little bit of understeer on entry and a little bit of oversteer on exit, demonstrating exactly what we were talking about the lower speed, lower grip conditions rather. He's not going to catch Woods at this rate, but can he improve? He can.
Nice
that kind of helps secure his second position with a minute and a half left. So this will be his last lap if he continues on with it.
Yep, and speaking of last lap, here's the next man that he's sort of fighting for that front row start with, is Luke Rosella, who's actually found a lot of time in this second sector as well. 7/10 of a second and change up on his own PB, and this will put him to the front row. He was actually purple through the middle sector, so it was a green sector 1, purple sector 2 by about a 1/10 and a half. Fastest time we've seen so far, and he's only got 2 more turns to go. Ravazza 1 and Ravazza 2. Double left-hander at the bottom of the circuit.
Used a lot more curb than Bolger did at both of those corners. That Porsche has a really pointy front end now. This is going to be where it's going to run out of breath. Can Rosella jump over Bolger for the front row of the grid?
He does.
He does.
Good time, and look at that. He's actually only a quarter of a second away from Damon Woods as well. So not that bad job for Luke Rosella at all. That'll be a little bit of confidence in that helmet and that cockpit right now.
Yeah, yet another thing to consider here, with only 25 seconds left in the session, Damon Woods is going to get 1 more lap in as well, because he's coming across the line now. I think he's going to set a time that is probably would still be good enough for pole potentially, 2.287 or so. It wouldn't quite have gotten pole that lap, but it would have been damn close. Because the track was reset back to nothing, there is still going to be track evolution throughout this session and the race. So potentially the track's going to bump up to be a bit faster in this session. And these last laps that people are doing, and I think that Damon Woods may be the last person. I think Termo might be getting 1 more go as well from the top group. These guys might put in some blistering laps if the track improves.
Bolger across the line.
He improved, but he didn't improve by enough to go to the front row. So that's his dash done and dusted, unfortunately. And there are a few drivers that are still on fast laps at the moment. Here they come. There's a nice gaggle of them coming to the line at the moment. You've got Taipan across the line. He's leading Greg Turra, who's down in 9th, getting a nice little tow here. Taipan stays 15th.
Now, though.
And then Greg Turra goes up to 3rd. So that was a really useful tow for Greg Turra out of all of that as well. So that's a really late charge. You got Noah Turra making a late charge for the top end of the grid as well. What does he do? He stays 8th. He improves by 0.009. Not enough.
Nolan's the next one coming around, and then he has our current provisional pole sitter Damon Woods just behind him.
Yes, Woods is just coming down the right, just coming down into Ravazza 1 now, so he's about 4 or 5 seconds behind. Scott Nolan very wiggly on the exit of Ravazza 2. There's Woods in the background, trying to shorten the run to the line as much as possible for Scott Nolan. Won't be an improvement, I don't think. Oh, actually it is. Up to 6th. I ate my words then. He went up to 6th. It didn't look like he was going to improve for a minute. Woods does improves, knocks off 0.2 of a second, goes into the books with a 42.8. At the end of the day.
Up on his lap.
Yeah, so he's he's just come back to the pits now. Who do he have with him? He had Pete.
Looks like.
No,
PJ.
They had Phil Wiseman was behind him. So that's the end of the qualifying session for that one. So Damon Woods, another pole position. Here he is in the garage. So good job for him. Luke Rosella, good job for Porsche to get them onto the second row of the grid ahead of Greg Turra and Steve Bolger. So that's an interesting second row. So the title protagonists and championship leader Steve Bolger, 4th place. Not too bad a spot to be. They've been told throughout the week that as much as there is a little bit of domination going on at the moment in the hands of Damon Woods, that if they just keep picking up those, podium positions, that they won't be caught, because they've had the benefit of having a couple of extra rounds and they're not going to get caught for any shred of the imagination.
And that's something that's good to hear, but also puts a lot of pressure on them to keep consistent results. And he was lucky there. He was lucky that he qualified as high as he did, Greg Turra and Steve Bolger for that matter, because Turra in particular was in no man's land right up until that very last lap. Just quickly want to draw attention to the gaps for 5th through to 10th. Termo with a 144.37 versus Brendan Ross with a 144.6. 0.3 of a second between 6 positions on the grid there. That is very tight stuff in the mid pack.
You can throw half a second over 2nd through 4th as well. So there's another little tight battle pack as well. Not a lot in that when drivers just having better sectors than others. Everybody's very, very tight at the moment. So there could be quite a few little interesting battles to run throughout the course of the night.
Ooh. And another thing quickly, we lost Xavier Kokai from that session. He seemed to have dropped out entirely and did not end up setting a time.
Yeah, getting word that that's a game crash as well. So he's doing his best to try and sort that out and get back into the session in this next warm-up for the next few moments. So he's got 5 or so minutes to sort himself out for that one, which gives us an opportunity to look at the drivers' standings after the opening 5 rounds. And as we mentioned a few moments ago, the top 2 in the championship, Steve Bolger and Greg Tara, are sharing the second row of the grid tonight. And Termo's not too far away. He's sort of, 10 points behind Greg Tara there, and Noah Tara not too far behind him. Bagsy, having a look at the standings here, the reason Steve Bolger's got the margin that he does to the tune of 15 points at the moment is because of the, let's just put it bluntly, the pit lane miscues and the strategy miscues that have happened over the last couple of rounds for Greg Tara.
Yeah, Greg and Noah Tara still sharing the pit boom, but not sharing the information about when they're going to pit. And unfortunately, it's caused both of them a little bit of havoc in the last few races. We saw it especially at Brazil affecting Greg Tara significantly. Then again at the Nürburgring. And it's unusual as well because it's well known that you can park basically half your car in the pit box, and it will enable you to share it with someone else. So I'm really surprised that they just haven't been practicing that to make that work for them, because it would work for them quite easily, and they haven't been doing it. So who knows? Maybe today will be different. And it shows how close they are as well in terms of competitive. So they're pretty much always there or thereabouts next to each other. So it's costing whoever's behind a huge amount of time. So fingers crossed they have fixed it.
And let's not forget as well, at Interlagos, Greg Tara had that issue where he ran out of fuel coming into the lane and ended up getting a very nice nudge from, I think it was Urjit Mishra, that just kind of pushed him into his box. That basically saved the race for him, saved 18 points, because otherwise he would have had to DNF, which would have been a much bigger drop in points. So that was from a potential top 5 position there as well for Greg. So pit lane strategy and strategy in general has been not the best over in the Tara camp, the GW Racing. So with this 90-minute race and running the front engine cars, they might they're going to have to get their sums right tonight.
Definitely. That's the sole biggest thing that they need to make sure they get right tonight. It's that they cannot afford the same mistakes. It's a bit different if you're trying to pit on the same lap, but you're 50 seconds apart on the track, which, let's face it, probably isn't going to happen tonight, because the 30 minutes will get, or the fuel window will sort of open, and if the drivers are sort of doing similar lap times to each other, it's going to be a bit of a problem. You can use the old AMS trick of pitting side by side and making that work, but realistically, to make it work, one driver has to go one lap longer than the other, which means one person needs to be doing some fuel saving somewhere along the line. And look, the Taras sit next to each other in the same house. They can talk to each other. That's the whole benefit. They're not talking to somebody that's on the other side of the country. They're sitting next door to each other. They can sort of tap each other, and one can say, hey, Dad, or hey, son, I'm pitting first. I'm the lead car. I have priority.
And it's such a hard track to do that fuel saving at, though. That's the thing. Normally you would fuel save by conventionally lifting and coasting. So what that means is you lift off 50 to 100 meters before your normal braking point, and then brake 10 to 15 meters afterwards. So that way you're using less fuel, but you're not using lap time. The problem with doing that at this track, or at least trying to, is that because a lot of the braking zones are not straight, as in you are trying to deal with turning the car or loading part of the car up into your braking zone. So at your Tamburello, you're drifting off to the right. At your Rivazza, you're again coming out of a sweeping corner. Piratella, you're going into a sweeping corner. Because these braking zones aren't straight, it means that it's very difficult to load the car up the right way to keep your car under control to then brake at the optimal point. So it's a very hard track to actually save fuel at. So it's going to be a struggle for the guys, particularly the front engine cars. And you might even see one of the Taros, if they've talked about it, if they've thought about it, potentially running a 3-stop to make sure that one of them can run the optimal 2-stop strategy and one of them can run off strategies to try and prevent that pit stopping from being an issue.
Speaking of pit stopping, you can see here Steve Bolger is actually doing a fuel only, or he was doing a timed fuel only stop to see how things were going there. And a bit of smarts going on. This is what a lot of drivers tend to do in the practice session, is they tend to practice some pit in, pit out procedures, make sure they know what the transit time through the lane is, because that's the other part of the equation that's not really worked out, is how much time you actually lose, not just in the stop, but how much time you lose transiting the pit lane. It is quite a long pit lane actually as well here at Imola. Let's not kid ourselves. It's one of the longest pit lanes on the calendar.
It also is one that costs you a huge amount of time, because you're having to go, instead of blasting down the straight at high speed, full throttle like you normally do, you're actively getting off the throttle onto the brakes for the pit entry, and then just slowly meandering your way there at, I think it's 100 k's an hour today, is it, or 80 k's an hour?
80 is what I was seeing.
80. So while everyone's doing a couple of hundred clicks past you, so the delta time is going to be a lot bigger today than some other tracks.
Yeah, the delta was already at least sort of 50 odd seconds for most tracks as it was, so you can sort of bump that up, I'd imagine, to be about sort of 60, 70, 80 seconds, just depending on what sort of fuel load you're taking or what damage you've got to repair and those sorts of things as well. We'll see it again here. More pit stop activities going on, and here's another one happening here for Dane Liccardo, and getting that job done as well. So it's not too much longer, and we will be on our way to a full 90-minute race session. So it's getting some word through. There has been one withdrawal due to some sort of technical dramas. It looks like that Matt Cecil, who was one of the drivers in that session, has bailed and doesn't look like he's going to make it back in. But Xavier Kokai has got himself back into the session. So it looks like we're going to have an 18-car field, which has sort of been about the number that we've had for the GT3s this year, which by my count is actually not a bad number at all. It's actually pretty healthy, considering there's a lot of things that run on Saturday nights. There's football, there's all real-life motorsport in other parts of the world, which I'm sure Flood's keen to go and have a watch of some point later on this evening. I think you were talking it's going to be like midnight for him, which is a half hour behind the time right now because he's in Adelaide. So there'll be plenty of things to look forward to a bit later on this evening. So 18's a healthy number.
Absolutely, and I think it's one of the strongest fields that we've seen for this season's Saturday night escapades. Brave decision by you guys to move it to Saturday night, and it's good to see that it's somewhat paying off.
Yeah, been an interesting sort of season to run, just to see how things would go on a Saturday night. I mean, we hadn't the ASR had not run a series on a Saturday night for a very, very, very long time. Actually, almost never. And just interesting just to see what sort of patronage it's been like over the journey. And it's not a bad thing that it's sort of turned out the way that it is. Good viewership, good racing as well. There's been very little in terms of stewards having to become involved in all manner of things. So that's always been a positive to look forward to each and every week. There's not very many stewards reports that have to be looked at, or conversations in the rooms. And there most of the discussions around penalties that have actually been pretty easy and pretty straightforward. So very, very fortunate with everything that's gone on in the year so far. And let's just keep our fingers crossed as the field starts to assemble itself that it's going to continue tonight.
Yes, they'll go ahead.
Another quick thing to note, sorry Bagsy, a normal safety car tonight, because it's one of the base tracks. We're running the full AMS suite, so no manual safety car, Bagsy.
Yeah, it's nice when the safety car, the AI safety car driver decides not to be on strike and actually has a bit of common sense. But anyway, onto the grid here for 90 minutes of Imola. This is the order they're starting in, but it's not going to stay like this for long. Apart from potentially Damon Woods here at the front, our pole sitter and the person who's absolutely dominated the last couple of races. He is in a league of his own at the moment. Alongside him, though, is Luke Rosella, who was a lot closer than I think most of us thought anyone would be to Damon Woods tonight. His little uni of SA Porsche Centre Australia car. So very good qualifying for him. Greg Tara in third. We saw him jump from 9th to 3rd at the death there. So a good start for him, especially because next to him is Steve Bolger, who is his main championship rival. So he's looking to beat and hopefully handily beat Steve Bolger today. Turmo is row 3 along with Scott Nolan, the GTR and the McLaren there. Lewis Wedding in the Ice Break Porsche starts in 7th alongside Steve Warwick in 8th. Noah Tara, the other Tara, down in 9th. Hopefully their pit strategy works a bit better when there's so much distance in between them at the moment. Brendan Ross starts with him. Dane Liccardo, another GTR, starts in 11th place with Ujit Mishra with him in 12th. Nathan Higginson in 13th in that PlayStation 2 BMW. Higginson's media engineering team, although it just says engineering T on the side there, so maybe they're getting into hot drinks as well. Lachlan Burke for I've always bugged this one. Settler All Australian Races. I've never actually said that one, but he's in the Bentley. I've always described them as Bentleys. He's in the Bentley. It's a beautiful blue Bentley, and he's staying 14th with Taipan in 15th. Brian Walsh is in 16th in the Wildcat Playboy Racing GTR, which is probably the prettiest GTR out there, in my opinion. PJ starts in 17th, also the guest GTR, and Xavier Kokai, who had that issue in qualifying, starts at the back. So the Evolution Racing team are bookending the grid today. How far can Kokai get?
Well, that'll be the next question. Is exactly right. How far can they actually get? Here they actually all start to come now around the final corner out of Ravazza number 2. And they start to line up for the race start. There goes the safety car. It's into pit lane, and Woods and Rosella bring this 18-car train to the line. The acceleration zone starts about here, but they'll be waiting on the green from the signal operator in the tower. And there we go. Immediately to the gas goes Damon Woods, and immediately into the slipstream goes Luke Rosella. So pretty clean start, pretty even start from everybody all up, although Woods has got the jump and got the whole shot and goes straight through to position number 1 where he qualified, which is a very, very handy place for him to be. A couple of spots changing hands a bit further back as Woods, and everybody running very, very wide at the exit of Tamburello chicane. You've got people such as Scott Nolan, who actually made a spot, as they immediately now surrendered it back to Turmo. So pretty much it's back to stations as they were as they head up to Tosa.
Kokai at the...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Xavier Kokai at the back of the field had Turmo very, very wide there and loses the position. Xavier Kokai had a big run at the start, but he didn't only gain the 2 positions, 3 actually, because PJ was going wide in the background there. So he almost had a massive accident though.
Field files through down into Aqua Minerale for the first time. Damon Woods, he got a great start off the line. Seemed to have a few car lengths straight over Luke Rosella, but Rosella's done a great job to keep him in his eye line across this lap. The gap is only about 3/10 ahead of Greg Tara, and then Steve Bolger, Scott Nolan, Turmo, Lewis Wedding, Noah Tara. Steve Warwick heads up the next big train with Nathan Higginson and Dane Liccardo completing a top 11. Then Ujit Mission, Brendan Ross, Lachlan Burke, Xavier Kokai, Brian Walsh, Taipan and PJ at the back of the field.
Yeah, PJ, one of the newcomers to the category this year. He's stepped in for the first time. Here's Steve Warwick. We talk about this train being held up, and he's just let Nathan Higginson's BMW slip through there at Aqua.
Dane Liccardo's gone wide at that last corner.
There was a local yellow flag very, very briefly, and then it was withdrawn. It might have been for one of the cars a bit closer toward the back of the field, just trying to work out who that might have been. Dane Liccardo.
Yeah.
There you go. So he had a little excursion. Where was that? Down at Ravazza 1. Yeah, so he was still moving, but he was just pointing the right direction, but he toured the gravel trap, so he dropped a couple of spots there. So he was actually behind Higginson and Warwick in this battle on screen. So he's now dropped down to behind Brendan Ross. So he's now going to have to make this pass stick. And here he goes, cheeking and jiving and looking down the inside of the Villeneuve chicane. But he's got some speed. He's just not got the patience and the pace at the moment. And Rossi's just parking it in the right spots. And look at that, just straight down the middle of the road and heads off the attack going into Tosa.
We've got 3 pairs of cars going side by side to Piratella. First up, it's Turmo and Noah Tara. Turmo's got the inside line there, but Noah hangs around the outside. Oh, it's difficult as they come to Aqua Minerale. Not really two lines through there, and Turmo prevails. Next up, it's Steve Warwick and Nathan Higginson, who are doing the same thing.
Yeah, Turmo's was actually due to a mistake he made a bit earlier because he was ahead of Lewis Wedding. He made a mistake coming out of the second chicane, and Lewis capitalised, and Noah Tara almost capitalised as well. People who are currently making hay, Greg Tara is pulling away from Bolger, who's a bit of a cork in the bottle for Scott Nolan. Lewis Wedding and Turmo and Tara coming up to make this a massive 5-car battle for fourth.
Here is that little battle pack you mentioned here. So Bolger now going into, I wouldn't say it's the fuel conservation mode, but he's just making a couple of little mistakes here and there, having a little bobble every now and again. And he's got Scott Nolan right on his hammer in the McLaren. So here we go, we're looking down from the roof cam here. Scott Nolan out of the slipstream, straight down the inside on the run to turn one, and he's got it done. Very, very comfortable in the end. Comfortable positional gain. Makes the apex really comfortably actually as well. So that was easy pickings in the end. Keep in mind though, McLaren has got some really good straight line speed, but it's a little bit thirstier than the Ferrari, so it might have to stop a little bit early. It's actually got the worst fuel economy of all the cars in the field, but it has got the biggest amount of straight line speed, and it actually handles pretty well as well. So part of the trade-offs going on with how the BOP adjustments and all have been done this year.
It's very interesting. Go ahead, Bagsy.
I was there, Lewis Wedding's looking very closely at the back of Bolger as well. He's immediately Nolan started to pull away from Bolger, so Greg Tara would be very happy to see that people are getting past Bolger and increasing that potential gap in championship points. Also, Greg will have to know that he's the first Tara on the road, so he's not going to be as effective in the pit stops potentially.
Yeah, that's a good part there as well. Greg Tara up in third, you've got Noah Tara down in 8th already, the separation's out to around 6 seconds, so still a long way to go before we get to the stops, but at least Greg Tara is going to have the priority at this point in time.
So I'm interested to see how the pace is evolving at the moment. The fastest lap of the race so far is a 44.3 by none other than Damon Woods, of course. He's just about to come across the line. We'll see if that number updates just very quickly before I continue. And he's 44.4. So that seems to be the front-running pace at the minute. What we've seen before with Steve Bolger is that he's very canny when it comes to saving fuel and running to a number. Remember, of course, the fuel mileage miracle at Monza last year in GT3. He ate an extra lap of fuel when no one else could. I wonder if he's just happy.
Sorry to cut you off there, Flood. There was a nice pass look moving on from Noah Tara there, but he butchered it at Tamburello. You can see he was a bit too deep. Pass was there to be made, and Turmo was the other party involved in that, but nothing that Turmo needed to do on that occasion, because Noah Tara has just cost himself an extra couple of seconds. Sorry.
So what I was about to say is, I wonder if Bolger's just happy to sit in the slipstream of Scott Nolan, and because he's tacked straight onto the rear of that McLaren now, and just run to a number, run to a fuel mileage, a fuel number in that case, and see if he can eke out an extra lap on his competition and potentially play that into some flexibility later on the race. So that'll be intriguing to my eye, and we'll see how it plays out over the next hour and a bit.
Yeah, we certainly will. This will be, it's like it's the Lewis Wedding strategy, I think is what we call it, isn't it? It's what you've seen him do time and time and time again earlier on in GT3 when he won the first of the championships. Big fuel mileage run, I think it was Road America that he made that happen back in the day, and I think he's learnt what is very, very possible when it comes to GT3 racing, has Steve Bolger, and I think you're right. I think maybe he's worked out that he can maybe get that little bit extra just by sitting in the draft of the faster McLaren, even though he's about half a second away at the moment. He's still getting the benefit of the tow.
New fastest lap of the race, 44.2 from Damon Woods, so that pace is just turning up a little bit. Rosella actually set the fastest final sector last lap around, so he's not letting Woods run away with it at the head of the field.
David Kokai back down in 11th has made up 7 spots on the start and doesn't quite have the pace of Damon Woods at the front. His best lap was the one he just set, which was a 146.207, so basically full 2 seconds off his teammate at the moment. I feel like he didn't have as much practice this week, as far as I know, compared to Damon Woods, though. So he's definitely making his way up the field very quickly.
Just having a look at the best lap that he's done versus the cars ahead of him and what they're doing. The only cars ahead that are sort of on a similar pace to him at the moment, Nathan Higginson, Lewis Wedding and Noah Turra, who actually had a track cut on the last lap because he obviously had that trip across the gravel at Tamburello. So we really don't have a read on if he's going to make any headway at the moment with Kokai, but he is sliding the car through the second part of Aqua Minerale. Let's get a bit of a readout now as to how far behind the 9th place Steve Warwick he is when we get through this part of the course. At the moment, you can see there the gap sort of standing at around 3.8 seconds. Actually, it's going up. It should be static gaps. We probably won't get a real read until we get to the line here, as we now get a new fastest lap for the Porsche of Luke Rosella. So he's finding a little something. I did say there was going to be a bit of confidence under his helmet after the qualifying result. And Kokai's dragging Ugrajit Mishra along for the ride as well. And Kokai to the line, and for him, it's not giving us a time as he crosses the line, so there might be a few little issues there on that side of the timing that we need to take a bit of a look at.
He picked up a track cut in
yes,
second one.
You're right, actually you do, and thank you for picking me up on that, Floyd. You're absolutely right. There was a track cut for him on that particular occasion.
Just hear me protesting about Ujit Mishra using all of the available runoff at the exit of Tamburello. He's just dropped off the tail of Kokai a little bit after that. The gap that was 1 second at the line now is 1.3. So not quite optimal for Ujit Mishra. Just the battle ahead of Xavier Kokai is this battle that we're looking at now. Nathan Higginson versus Steve Warwick. And Higginson, after terrorizing Warwick for a few laps and getting past, hasn't been able to really pull away. Just been one or two little mistakes and little moments of oversteer that's meant that Warwick's been able to just latch onto the tail. So this battle has been persisting for a little while. So interest aplenty at the tail of the top 10. And then just ahead of them on track is another BMW battle, this time Noah Turra with the GTR of Termo.
Yeah, you can just see them off in the distance there as well. Steve Warwick's actually picked up about a 10th or two on Nathan Higginson the last lap or two as well. And a big slide for Higginson, and that's all it takes. The pressure turned up by Steve Warwick forces the mistake from Higginson, and that's about as easy as a pass, I think, as Warwick will ever think he's ever had.
Was quite easy there. At the front, Greg Turra has just set a new personal best, but also the fastest middle sector. Luke Rosella set a new fastest lap with the fastest final sector again, and the gap at the front is now less than a second. So entering a bit of a different phase. Damon Woods, I guess, was thinking about how thinking about just doing what he did the last couple of races, just driving off into the distance and not having any regard for the people behind him. But perhaps he is a little concerned about how Luke Rosella is sticking with him at the moment, and that this could become a fuel mileage race rather than an outright pace race.
I've got a funny feeling I know what's going on here. I think the Porsche guys have realised that the only way that they can force the front engine cars to actually into a position where they can actually fight for victory here is to force them to burn their fuel. So if Damon Woods is being harassed by Rosella here, this is the strategy that's working perfectly. Probably Lewis Wedding and Luke Rosella have had a big discussion about this. If they can keep turning the wick up and force Woods' hand, then that's how they're going to win this race, or one of the Porsches is going to win this race. If I was in Damon Woods' position here, I'd be letting Luke Rosella go and seeing how far and how fast he actually is compared to the Benz, because the Benz and the other front engine cars like the BMWs and the Bentleys are going to have to save at some point if they want to make this two-stop strategy work.
Another 44 flat for Rosella as he still piles the pressure on. The gap is now just over half a second. It's interesting to me that you say that you should let Rosella go. I think the Porsches have the luxury of being assured of making it work and making this race work on a two-stop. The Porsche has the best fuel mileage of the lot. Can comfortably get about comfortably 18, probably 19 laps on a tank. And in fact, Damon Woods just responded with the fastest first sector of the race that was immediately taken back by Luke Rosella. So Rosella has some serious pace in this Porsche, and it's going to be intriguing to see how this plays out over the next hour.
It's intriguing watching the other battle that's going on a bit further down for 4th and 5th place. So you're keeping an eye on the top two going hammer and tongs at it at the moment. Keeping an eye on 4th and 5th with Nolan and Bolger going hammer and tongs at it as well. Bolger was right under the rear wing of the McLaren about 30 seconds ago, and I do mean literally right under the rear wing of the McLaren, and didn't pull the trigger on the pass. He was close enough to send it down the inside of Villeneuve, and he didn't decide it was he decided it was not the right time to do it. And again, little half-hearted look just to show the nose on Nolan, but you're right, I think from earlier, he's just keen to sit there, keen there to get the draft assistance and make that fuel mileage work. So there's a lot of gamesmanship going on up and down the field here, not just in the top two, but a bit further down the order as well. It's all to play for tonight. There actually has been another change of position as well, with Noah Turra going through on Turmo.
At the front, I think we're about to see another change of position because Luke Rosella is right in the wheel track to Damon Woods as they come into Tamburello, and he pulls out of it at the last second. So but it was a very good run that Luke Rosella had there. And yeah, I had just spotted on the timing screens, Noah Turra has actually been lighting them up a fair bit. He got ahead of Turmo, like you just said. We also set a lap time that was a full 1.5 seconds faster than the person ahead of him, Lewis Wedding. So Noah Turra finding some pace and actually doing laps on par with Greg Turra and Scott Nolan at the front in the 144s.
And his last lap was just a PB as well at a 44.993, so that's his fastest lap of the race, coming on lap 8.
A quick note as well that Scott Nolan grabbed a track cut last lap around as well, so that's another thing that's going to factor in for this long race. The last thing you want is to pick up a drive-through penalty, so we'll try and keep tabs on who's been picking those up and who's been causing the indiscretions, because that will be a factor late on the race. And in fact, I think Luke Rosella, he got away with that one. Very wide for Acca Minerale, but managed to sneak through.
I'm actually surprised that a number of them are not picking up track cuts at the Variante Alta chicane as well. There's some really hard climbers going up and over the sausage curbs as well from a number of spots. You see there, just Scott Nolan, the first part of the chicane. I'm a bit surprised some drivers are actually getting away with that one. So they've all worked out where the track limits are. And here's Bolger again. Look at how close he is over the rear wing of the Macca. And
Damon Woods is under pressure as well at the front in the main straight. It's going again.
Yeah, here we go. Look at the big draft assistance that Rosella is getting. The top end speed of Porsche is being helped enormously by the front engine Mercedes-Benz ahead of it. And no, again, no dice this time. And well, let's go back to the 4th and 5th because Bolger's decided it's time to pull the trigger. And he's going to pull it down here at turn 1. And has he managed to get this one done? It's a little bit messy, but he's managed to get it done. I don't think Scott Nolan will be a bit too pleased with how that happened, because it looked like the first part of the pass was okay, but then when he had to get the block pass on, it sort of strayed off the track a little bit. But I think the stewards will probably let that one go.
Pass for the lead as well.
Yep, it is. It's happening down here. It's happening at Piratella.
Very narrow on the inside Rosella had to be because of the car on the outside, but he's managed to sneak the Porsche through and takes the lead of the race as they come into Acca Minerale. So passes are plenty. We've got a new 4th place position and a new one out in front. Let's see how long or if Luke Rosella can hold on.
Oh, there's been contact as well there in the braking zone. Damon Woods gave the Porsche Luke Rosella a little bit of a Morse code and a love tap on the rear. I was going to go back and have a look at the replay to see how we got the pass done, but we're not going to do that now because this is starting to get very, very interesting. And as I said, the gamesmanship just starting to show a little bit. That little love tap probably wouldn't have been intentional, but it is a little bit of a wake-up call.
I think that's just the difference. This is pretty much the first time Rosella's having to go into a corner. Like that corner he hasn't been into this whole race with that car in front of him in a bit of frame of reference. So you go in a little bit more tentative because you're not 100% on where it's going to be. And Damon Wood's not expecting that. He knows where he's been braking the whole time and just comes right up on the back of him and gives him that little tap. But it is, he's so close though. It looks like Rosella's not breaking his spirit here. Damon Woods wants that lead back.
Whoa. Cracking stuff.
Absolutely.
Pardon me. Woods, let's have a look at the sector times. Woods is quicker to the first sector, so he's really wringing the neck of that Mercedes, but this is where the Porsche has been strong, through the more flowing parts of the track, out of Tosa, through Piratella. Nicely done through there for Rosella.
Speaking of Piratella and Tosa, sorry to cut you off there, Flood, there was actually, the other one of the Porsches is under siege at the moment. Lewis Wedding's actually got very much the train behind him, the very fast Noah Turra. Just had a little bit of a look at Tosa and couldn't pull it off. Termo's right there as well. And then you've got Steve Warwick's Bentley is just starting to range up onto the back of this trio as well. So Porsche's to the fore, but they've got their fight on their hands today. There's 3 of them in the field, 2 of them are in the thick of it.
And Wedding's actually the slowest of this group at the moment, or has been the last few laps. He's out the 46s at the moment, whereas everyone else in this group are in the 45s. In fact, Steve Warwick last lap around was in the 44s, so he's found some pace in that BMW. It's interesting to me that Wedding seems to be struggling a bit more compared to Rosella out in front.
I guess that's sort of the benefit of it. Lewis Wedding sort of been running in the clear air, whereas Rosella's had the benefit of that being towed around the circuit for a little bit as well. So there's probably a little bit of help being afforded to Rosella on that particular instance. And he's got quite a margin. What I've been looking at, what I've been interested to see at the moment is Greg Turra. I know he's been running on his own, but he's actually sort of been keeping a relatively steady gap with what's been going on at the moment, and his son has actually just got the pass done on Luke Rosella. He's got the pass done on Lewis Wedding there, going into Tamburello. So quite comfortable in the end. Got a really nice slipstream out of Ravazza 2, and now goes up to 6th place.
Let's see if Wedding can hold on and maybe make a pass back through this middle sector where the Porsche has been a little stronger. Turra hasn't managed to break away just yet, as this battle pack comes over the top of the hill and into Piratella. Looks generally pretty smooth from Turra, so he's not being terrorized by having Wedding in his mirrors there. In fact, they've just dropped Termo a little bit as well, just by a few car lengths as they come through Aqua Minerale.
I think that Noah Turra has the pace to potentially get a podium today if a few things fall his way, because he has shown some very fast times that are equal of those. He's one of only 5 people in the 44s. Luke Rosella, the only person who's managed a 43. But he's definitely got the pace where if something goes wrong for 1 or 2 of these guys at the front, he's a chance to be up on the podium.
Here from Termo, sitting in 8th place, just watching these guys go out. Once it's run like off in the final corner, get a slipstream on Lewis Wedding up the straight. Bit of a toe. Here we go. Now it starts to kick in. Have a look at Termo's speed. Look at the closing speed on the Porsche. And he just gives him a love tap. He doesn't want to go past him. He's just like, come on, let's go. You're faster than me. Let's catch up to Noah. And that didn't come off. He had the pace to go past him there.
Yeah, it was very strange there from Termo. You'd think, unless he's playing the strategy game, but I can't see what reason what part strategy would have you not pass your rivals when you have an amazing run that would easily get you past.
I think he almost got too caught there. He was closing at such a rapid rate of knots. He almost got too close to the car in front that he was trying to pass. I think had he tried to juke out, he might have tagged the rear and sent Wedding around.
So I'm sure we get a replay potentially of Damon Woods going through Aqua Minerale. PJ, the first one to be lapped, and Luke Rosella got past him fairly easily, but Damon Woods had quite the walk on the apex in Aqua Minerale.
Yeah, here it is. So coming down the hill, and you're right, Rosella, there he goes through on the inside. Oh yeah, just a little bit late and that's sort of that's a bad part of the circuit to be caught as well. So
Giving him a track cut as well.
yeah, it has too. So that'd be his first strike, and unfortunately those ones can't be removed. So he's going to have to continue on his merry way for that one. And
Well done by Rosella there, actually, because part of sports car racing is passing traffic. Oh, we've got a drive through for Mishra, who's just come out of the pits. You can see him in the background of that shot. So probably a pit lane speed infringement for Mishra there, unfortunately.
Yep, so that'll be
Very early stop for Mishra too.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing, Bags. You're absolutely spot on. That's extremely early for a front engine car, but it doesn't sort of bode well. Turmo's at it again. Look at this. He's bumping Wedding down the straight. That's the second time in 2 laps that this has happened.
I don't get it.
Do they have some form of some pact that they have that, you know, because maybe Lewis isn't happy with the balance of performance and wants extra straight line speed, so he's paid Turmo to push him a bit faster down the straight.
Well, they're not in the same. They're not in the same Discord at the minute, so I'm wondering whether or not they've their time of the months are synced up or something. Oh, Steve Warwick through the background, but yeah, something's maybe there's magnets on these cars, and maybe Turmo's front magnet is being attracted to Lewis Wedding's rear magnet. I'm not sure what's going on there at all.
It seems odd to me, because if Turmo had managed to make the pass on Wedding into Tamburello, he could be doing this whole nudging charade on Noatara instead of Lewis Wedding, because Wedding's holding him up here. Wedding's solidly in the 46s, and Turmo wasn't until he got stuck behind the Porsche. So he's actually stuck there now, and is losing time to the likes of Noatara, who's passed Wedding and made his way through. Another guy who's made a little bit of a gap is actually Steve Bolger. We've been talking about how that Ferrari and the McLaren of Scott Nolan have been attached by the badges through most of the middle part of the race, but actually now Bolger's pulled out a little bit of a lead, as Damon Woods now has the fastest lap of the race, a 43.5, responding to Luke Rosella, who hasn't enjoyed a gap so far since taking the lead.
No, he hasn't. And on top of that, we're now starting to get some callers on pit road as well. So Mishra's in to serve his speeding penalty. Lockie Burke was in the second of the Bentley, and PJ in the Nissan. So it's all starting to kick off. There's some front engine cars. There you go. There's a few cars just starting to leave the lane.
Kicking off, Damon Woods has a brilliant run at the moment at the front on Luke Rosella as they are heading up the hill. He's not going to be able to make anything of it, but he's kicked up another gear. So I'm wondering if it's just fuel saving has stopped and attacking has begun anew, because that ballooned out to 1 second after that incident with the lap traffic, and now it's right back there.
Yeah, he's sort of caught back up after that incident with the lap traffic, so he's pretty much back to where he wants to be. So I think you're right, maybe he just has the ability just to turn the wick up just a little bit when he needs to turn it up. And actually, just looking at the back of that shot there as well from Damon, there it is there again. Greg Tara is just starting to flash into view. He's doing a remarkably good job, Greg Tara, at minimising the amount of time that he's losing to everybody ahead. We've seen Brian Walsh has gone for a trip across the grass at the final corner as well, and he's about to be lapped by the leaders.
Now, when Damon Woods is able to, because this is going to give Luke Rosella a bit of a slipstream and a bit of help out down the straight. So this could affect Damon Woods, but he's not really let off the gas, so he's going to be right in the braking zone now instead of being passed on the straight. He's not obliged to jump out the way so quickly, but he's definitely getting in amongst it at the moment.
Now this could be,
there he goes, good job.
Well done, Brian. I was about to say this could be a very important moment in the race, because if Rosella could get past Walsh again just before Variante Villeneuve, it could force the GTR in between himself and Woods, much like the GTR of PJ did at Aqua Minerale. Passing traffic is part and parcel of sports car racing. That's how you have to kind of make speed and differentiate yourself from your opponents, is through this processing of traffic. And if you look just a little further back to the battles in the mid-pack, we were talking about Luke Rosella and Lewis Wedding and Turmo. They're coming across PJ at the moment. We've got a string of Bentleys as well. Some of them have been through the pits. It's very busy through that part of the lap now.
Yeah, 100%. If we look back at some of the other battles as well, so you're talking about the Steve Bolger one, he's consistently been in the 44s for the last 5 or 6 laps. And Scott Nolan's been in the 44s as well, but he's sort of had a couple of higher 44s and a couple of 45s thrown in for good measure. So, oh, wow, big save and a big opposite lock move there from Steve Bolger coming up the hill out of Aqua Minerale. That would have got his attention, especially seeing these tyres are probably getting to the end of their lifespan for this opening stint. But he's just been slowly nudging away for Nolan, but that'll do nothing for his heart rate at the moment. That would have sent it probably about another 20 beats per minute higher, having that little moment. Back to the leaders at the front, though. It's back to the way it was. So now we're getting to this window. You spoke about this lap earlier, Flood. Lap 17. That's the critical number. If you can get over and above lap 17 for a fuel run, you're looking good.
And someone who hasn't done that is Noah Turra, the first of the big hitters to really jump into the pits. He's come in at the end of lap 16 for Noah.
Yeah.
He's bringing in Steve Warwick as well.
Now, the thing is this because of a strategy play, you know, because maybe he's heard that Greg Turra is going to be in next lap, so he wants to...
Sorry, Bagsy, I'm just going to interrupt you. Lewis Wedding's won right at Tamburello and ceded that position to Termo. So he's just taken a trip through the gravel, and Termo's wrapped around now into 6th place.
Just going to look at that one on the replay and see how that one came about for Lewis Wedding. He had quite a margin on Termo actually down the front straight just from looking at it. He had at least 3 or 4 car lengths. I'm taking that this is just going to be an out-braking manoeuvre. Yeah, he avoided the grass. Yep, just pinched the brake and had no alternative but to the gravel track. So at the end of the day, that's how position was won for Termo.
In the pit lane, Steve Warwick and Nathan Higginson showing the Turras how it should be done, parked side by side very nicely and getting both their services done.
There they are. They share a pit boom. So Higginson is still in the lane and Steve Warwick is gone. So
Damon Woods comes in.
There we go. All right. So this is the first one here. So you were talking about this lap 17. That gets us to lap 51, if we can do the math, and it's just on half to step. And here comes Greg Turra. So there's Woods, there's Turra. So the Turras have obviously coordinated, and Brian Wallace. So the Turras have obviously coordinated this one. They now know that one of them is looking the goods at the moment to be in the box seat. But this is actually, I wouldn't say it's good news for Greg Turra. I'd say it's probably a little bit of, it's something news, right? Because at the end of the day, what it means is that the 2 front-engine cars in the BMW and the Mercedes-Benz are pretty much well matched on fuel, and Scott Nolan's in as well.
As is Steve Bolger as well. So that's basically everyone in that second group.
David Kokai.
Everyone who's not in a Porsche has come in on that lap, except for PJ, but he's already come in.
Yes, there's 4 cars sitting in the lane now. There's Nolan, you've got Kokai, you've got Greg Turra and Damon Woods. So Woods will be the first one to depart. There he goes. And Greg Turra will probably be a couple of seconds behind him. About 6 seconds, I would say, judging by the math. And there you go. Off he goes.
So Luke Rosella at the moment, he's purple to the first sector, purple to the second sector, and he's just put a lap on Noah Turra out of Variante Alto. Very nice from Turra. Very kind to Rosella to actually jump out of the way there and not affect his lap. This is Luke Rosella putting the hammer down and seeing if he can break Damon Woods before he even has to pass him on track.
Purple sectors 2, purple sector 1, purple sector 2. He is putting the hammer down.
And he continues again.
He is, and this is going to be a new race fastest lap, I think. Now that Woods is in, he needs to consolidate this. The overcut has to work. It's not a new fastest lap of the race. It's a 44 dead. It was actually a slow last sector. It was a 40.4 in the final sector. So probably a little bit of traffic affected there, but still, he is pressing on.
Noah Turra's kindness to Luke Rosella almost cost him the place to Termo there.
Yeah, very, very close. And it's actually been lucky for Rosella that he's actually come out ahead of Termo, because that means that he's got a very, very clear track ahead of him. The next car up on the road is Scott Nolan, who's dropped off a little bit from Steve Bolger. They're currently on their way down to Aqua Minerale, so that's a lot of room that Rosella has to work in to light the field up at the moment.
That's actually an interesting point. So Bolger has been in and taken service as well. So we missed the lap that he actually came in. We'll actually go back and have a look. Did he come in on the same lap as Turra?
On the same lap as Tara, yeah.
He did. Okay, so that's an interesting development for the mid-engine Ferrari. Around that time.
I'm just going to bring us to Lewis Wedding. He's just
I was about to say
his way through Dane Liccardo, yeah.
Dane Liccardo not behooving himself to Lewis Wedding, and has now also lost the place to Lockenberg and possibly Ujrik Mishra as well, because he was faffing about with Lewis Wedding and racing him through Tamburello and onwards, and that's Lewis Wedding is not going to be happy with that. It cost him a fair bit of time, it seems. And Brendan Ross has finally come into the pits as well, so it's first
guys,
Porsche.
Luke Rosella, he's very, very slow.
He's in now. He's in now. So he's gone maybe one lap too long, but he needs to know where the box is. Is he going to be able to make it? What was his sectors in there? He had a really poor middle sector because Noah Turra got through on him, and he's just going to make it to the box. I don't know if he was out of fuel, but he had a really average middle sector, and Noah Turra got by him. I don't know if it was a mistake on Rosella's part, because Lewis Wedding in second place is still going strong, is still going at full pace. Was there a background I just saw?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, Dane Liccardo missed the corner.
There you go.
He didn't hit anyone.
Second time. And here comes Wedding, and Wedding's okay. So maybe
I think it's actually been a game glitch or something. I've looked back and had a look at the replay for Rosella. He just kind of pulled off to the side of the road coming out of Piratella. Just kind of pulled off to the side. So a very weird one for Rosella. And that might actually mean that he loses position to Damon Woods, who's just coming through Ravazza 1 and 2 as we speak.
Yeah, so Woods is coming through the final corner now. So maybe you're right. This is what happened. We've seen this before with Luke Rosella, who's actually rolling down the pit lane now. He's about to see the bends go through on the other side of the fence. And there it is. You can just see it there, and Woods is gone. So that little glitch, 2 seconds or so, has cost Luke Rosella the lead of this race. And he's actually got quite a margin to make up now.
It was weird because he very deliberately pulled off to the side of the road, let Noah Turra pass, and then pulled back in onto the racing line. It might have been a maybe not a glitch, but maybe like a hardware issue. Maybe something happened to his steering wheel and he had to take care of it, or something along those lines, or something in real life that's distracted him. But he very much was not on the pace during that section of the racetrack.
5.5 seconds the margin, though. This is game on with a lap or 2 laps worth of fuel difference, though. This is where Rosella needs to make that fuel advantage count. He actually needs to range up onto the back of Woods in the next half a dozen laps or so, or not so much half a dozen laps, in the next 10 laps or so, and put the pressure back on him, because he's got those extra bit of fuel miles. Because right now, Woods can afford to go into a little bit of fuel conservation mode and just cruise into a couple of these corners and maybe just try and elongate the stint.
Let's have a look at the gaps and the laps and get kind of a bit of a scope of where everyone is at the moment. So at the moment on screen, we've got Damon Woods. There he is coming into Ravazza. Just behind him, to the tune of almost 6 seconds actually, is Luke Rosella. So he's just coming through the entry of Ravazza 1 right now. The gap from Rosella to Greg Turra is actually only 3 seconds. So if we jump back to Rosella as we come down the straight, there's Greg Turra. So not all that far at all. Next car on track is Steve Bolger.
He's here's Rosella now, across the line, and right there's Greg Turra just behind him. As they cross the line, and Bolger's just exited the final corner now.
Yeah, so that gap is now 14 seconds between Greg Turra and Bolger. Bolger has 3.5 seconds over Scott Nolan, so that gap has ballooned a little bit since the pit stop. Noah Turra is the next car on track. He's about 8 seconds behind Scott Nolan. And then it's Termo, who's 3.5 seconds behind Noah Turra. Remember, Termo came out right behind Turra. And then it's Lewis Wedding, who's about 3.5 seconds behind Termo, or 4 seconds now. So those gaps in the mid-pack have kind of ballooned out a little bit because of the pit stop sequence and everyone getting back into their rhythm.
And Kokai's now found himself inside the top 10 as well after all the pit stops are shaken out. Ujrik Mishra, who was in the last spot in the 10, had that drive-through penalty, with Kokai being in 11th, and now Kokai finds himself in the 10, having started rear of grid. Bagsy.
Just thinking about how Damon Woods might need to do a bit more, because we saw it was almost exactly on the hour when he came in. So he could still have a little bit of an issue making his end because it is 90 minutes plus 1 lap. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out anyway. The gap is coming down, so is there going to have to be a bit more fuel saving on Damon Woods' behalf? Because we know that making it to lap 19, 2 less laps of fuel, that's a significant amount. One other thing we didn't touch on, because probably not going to be relevant in this race, but tyres, you could, depending on how kind you are, eke out a couple of stints on a set of tyres. I believe the only person who's giving it a go is Nathan Higginson down in 11th. It did gain him a lot of time though, because it's taken him out of the battle with Brendan Ross, Lachlan Burke, Dane Liccardo and Ujrit Mishra, and it's put him a decent way up the road from them while they're still battling each other.
We can see now he's down here at the exit of Aqua Minerale, heading up the hill now, and here comes that battle, actually just leaving Piratella and into Aqua Minerale. So he's got, judging by timing there, about 8 seconds on this group, as Lockie Burke, who's at the back of this queue, just gets in the right through track cut. That is a track cut, so he's out of them already. That's
not boding well for him, because we're not even halfway through the race yet. So I wonder if I should start a Glenn Miles-esque counter as we were talking about before.
Well, we haven't got that far. I think we've had 2 penalties, one for pit lane speeding and one for shortcutting the course. So actually this battle pack has just started to break apart a little bit. So you got Mishra and Liccardo in a 2-pair. And then you got Brendan Ross and Lockie Burke, who's about to drop out of the other 2-pair and do his drive-through. And the third of the Porsches. So Brendan Ross in 14th, Burke in 15th. He actually doesn't go through to serve that drive-through penalty, so he's got a little bit of time to go. And then behind them, Taipan's had a pretty lonely race in the sole Lamborghini in this one. He's the last of the cars on the lead lap as well. Behind him, it's Brian Walsh and PJ, the 2 Nissans. The race leader is actually not that far behind Taipan at the moment. You see him sort of start to just range up into the back of shot in the next sort of few seconds or so. Probably the shot down from Tosa, I think, will probably be the one that actually shows just how far there is to go. You see Woods just start to emerge at the back of shot just a few seconds ago there. So there's actually the Nissan of PJ, and then you've got Woods behind. So it's not a lot to go. So it's probably about 10 seconds or so for the race leader. You can see the race leader now coming up to Tosa that Taipan has just navigated.
Just looking at Greg Tara, he set his first personal best in 1:43, so this stint is starting to come towards him a little bit better, a little bit faster than Damon Woods as well, so don't count him out just yet, although he is a fair way off of the lead. But yeah, it's not a huge amount. It's actually the distance between him and Rosella is less than the distance between Rosella and Woods. So the 3 on the podium all still, you could probably say they're a lock for the podium, barring any calamities, because Steve Bolger is a long way back now. But yeah, these 3 look like they're still going to duke it out a little bit before the end of the race.
Battle on screen's the only battle that's really close at the moment. It's really all about trying to minimise and maximise the deficits between other cars that's going on at the moment. So you've got Rosella trying to hunt down Damon Woods, Greg Tara trying to hunt him down. Those gaps are sort of stabilised, but then have a look at this. You've got Liccardo trying to wrap around the outside of Ujit Mishra. That's a lovely, lovely pass by Dane Liccardo on the outside at turn 1.
Very nicely done, making the most of the Nissan's straight line speed. I mean, they're both front engine cars, so they're basically using exactly the same physics, so it doesn't really matter, but still very nicely done nonetheless. Very brave to go around the outside of Tamburello. You're trusting the guy on the inside to give you the space through the corner, and Dane did very well.
He definitely did, and he's driving Redmond's number 43 as well. As we used to say this, it's the King's 43. I'm assuming that's why Tim runs it in supercars and all sorts of other things. The King, affectionately known as Richard Petty in NASCAR circles, and he's doing that number proud. That's a beautiful move on the outside of 1.
Redmond actually, sorry, Nether jumped into the YouTube live chat to say that he's not home, so he couldn't manage to join in the race. So it's good that his car's getting a run, and we'll say hi to Tim while his car's on screen.
Absolutely.
Hi,
Well,
Tim.
G'day Tim, g'day to all the Kiwi guys that are flooded in and supported ASR for the last 18 or so months. It's good to see him, and he's even applauding that move as well. He actually thinks that was a very, very nice move in its own right, so one he'd be proud of. Well, let's all settle down for a little bit. I think, Flood, you want a little bit of airtime to have a chat about endurance chat, because it's good, as we said earlier, to have you guys jump on board for the balance of the GT3 season. It's very, very appropriate that a podcast about all things sports car racing comes on board to support a sim racing league and series about sports car racing.
Yeah, it all kind of worked out very nicely. So I want to firstly say thanks to Mike for helping us jump on board, and for you guys for having us. If you don't know by now, if I haven't shielded it enough yet, I've been working on a podcast for the last 6 years about sports car racing, predominantly the WEC, but we also dabble in SRO GT World Challenge, which is the organization that does basically all the notable GT racing around the world. Speaking of, by the way, just a quick sidebar, the Spa 24 Hours starts tonight, so that'll be on after this if you want to jump into some GT racing. It's been an awesome project, and of course, another person that I do this project with is Kiwi Chris. And if you've been watching the TCAC streams that we do over on the Endurance Chat Media channel, you would have heard his voice before. As we got a penalty now for Brendan Ross, which I think might be track cuts.
Out of Aquaminarali. He shortcutted the course up the hill, so he'll do a tour of the lane.
That's unfortunate for Rossi. He's down in 14th at the moment. So it's a project we've been working on for 6 years. We've gotten some sponsorship ourselves this year, and yeah, we talk about endurance racing. We've got a bunch of episodes lined up very shortly for Le Mans, which is happening next month. It's actually happening the next night of GT3 action here at ASR, so I'll be stepping away from my commentary duties to be managing that on the r/WC subreddit. But we'll have a preview of the event, we'll have a rundown of all of the drivers in each of the categories, and we've actually done a similar one for the Spa 24, so if there's enough time, if you're interested, after this race finishes, you can jump in, have a listen to that, and yeah, learn about some worldwide GT racing.
Very, very big summary, I guess, of what you guys do, and we also should mention it's great to have you guys on board looking after the live stream for the upcoming Super Series as well. We might actually have a little bit of a quick break, and we'll bring that one up on the screen there. You can see a WEC Endurance Chat on the bottom corner there, so that's starting in a couple of weeks, 10th of August, 2 weeks away. Actually, less than 2 weeks away now. Good to have you and Kiwi Chris on board for that one. As you said, you've been doing the TCAC streams for a while now, and it's your first dabble sort of into all things ASR, pretty much a stream in its own right, the very first one you guys are going to be doing for ASR, so big props, and we're looking forward to seeing that one go ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to do that one. I've heard a lot about the Lancers, and a lot of drivers are saying how much fun they are to drive, so I'm keen to get my eyes onto that. And before we wrap this up, I do have to say a big thank you to Jonathan, our graphics guy. His Reddit handle is Lada Safety Car, so he's done all the graphics for us, including the roadside banners, which Nether, yourself, and Lewis have put into the game, and also the little logo that's gone alongside all the GT3 graphics this evening, and he did that on very short notice and did a very, very good job of it. So I want to give him a shout out for doing that for us.
Good on him. Good to have you guys on board once again. Bagsy, what are you noticing out there while Flood was writing his monologue? What's going on in the land of strategy at the moment? Because there doesn't look like there's a lot of gaps that are really closing up. In fact, I think the one out in front has just started to edge away a little bit from Luke Rosella.
Has, and Greg Tara had a bit of an incident with traffic that I think we may have caught on the broadcast, where he lost a couple of seconds in the first sector, which has set him back a little bit in his pursuit of Luke Rosella. Also, last lap, Scott Nolan and Noah Turra, who are both coming through to do a lap now, but the lap before that, they both got track cuts, so that'll be something to keep an eye on, as did Ujrit Mishra. So there's a few people being a little bit naughty.
Yellow flag at Tamburello.
Yeah, that
for
was
a Bentley.
there was another yellow flag that was off. I think I saw for Taipan. He was off at Villeneuve as well. So there might have been 2 incidents going on there, triggering the yellow flag. That was in the back behind Luke Rosella. One of the Bentleys. I'm just trying to look at who
That was Lachlan Burke in the Settler All-Australian Races Bentley. Fun fact, actually, by the way, while we're talking Settler, the team that runs that livery in the World Endurance Championship, Settler Racing, they took their first class victory at Portimao in the GT-AM class running a Ferrari. So congrats to them.
There you go. Fun fact. You can tie things back from sim racing to real life racing. Is always a good thing to do. Got to remember too that this Bentley shape is the old Bentley shape, not the one that was in the hands of Bentley M Sport that got the last victory out at the Mount Panorama Bathurst 12 hour before it sort of went a bit pear-shaped over the last couple of years with COVID and all. No one's really modelled the newer Bentley. I don't know, Flood. Give me your opinion. Which one looks better, the newer one or this one? I've put you in a difficult spot here now, haven't I?
I like the front end of the newer one, but I like the rear end of the old one. The rear end of the new one looks like someone squished a GT4 Janetta on the rear of it. And if you don't follow GT4 racing, you're gonna have no idea. But it looks squashed in. I really don't like it. But the front end of the new one looks very, very sexy. And I can tell you that because I saw them up close and personal at Bathurst 12 hour last year. So we got another string of pit stoppers. Actually, these are all penalty taken.
No, that's Lockie Burke. He's done.
Burke retiring.
He's actually decided he's had enough. So
he probably doesn't want to take a stab at Miles's record because that's the way he was heading.
And that's disappointing because up until this point, over the halfway mark, we actually had all races were actually still travelling along quite nicely. We hadn't had a single DNF, and I think that one's not so much a DNF. I think that one might be actually I've had enough rather than a DNF.
It's unfortunate, but who wants to run half a race taking a track penalty every time you cut the track?
No, fair enough. Well, I mean, the last one also, Brendan Ross actually got himself another one as well, so he's actually just letting Scott Nolan pass at the moment.
I'd just written down both their names and the tallies of their penalties as sort of like it was going to be a head-to-head thing, and then, yeah, Lockie Burke's gone and ruined that for me.
No, he has.
Yeah.
So that's a bit sad. That means he's out just after the half-distance mark. So we've got 40 minutes to go now, plus the one lap. Let's do some maths. So Damon Woods is just across the line now to start his 29th lap.
We got a collision nether in turn 1. It's Nathan Higginson in 11th with Dane Liccardo and Ujit Mishra. They've managed to squeeze out the other side, but it's 3 big cars going together into Villeneuve. Liccardo on the inside. Is he going to be kind? Higginson goes deep. They make contact once again. Liccardo's in the gravel.
Mishra's going to get them both here. He's going to get them both, I think. He's going to go... No, he gets one spot. So
Higginson's gone deep, though.
Oh, they're going off everywhere.
And I think you saw Liccardo there flash the headlights. I think he had a right to be aggrieved there as we're going to catch a replay of what's just happened through turn 1. It was very, very deep under brakes. We're watching them come through into Tamburello. Higginson had the inside line here and then went very, very deep and just a little bit of side touching as they came in, and then it was just all a bit of a mess.
That was a bit mess, and Mishra was very lucky not to get caught up in this as well. Then you saw the fight just continued on down to Villeneuve, and the same trick tried again. You know,
wow.
Neither driver wanting to give an inch, and then further contact between the two of them. I wouldn't be surprised to see the stewards have a loot and then flash the lights from Liccardo, not happy about it all. I think Liccardo was trying to wrap around the outside in the same fashion that he did a couple of laps ago when he snatched 12th place off of Ujit Mishra. Didn't quite go according to plan. I fear that round 2 is about to start.
I've got to say, though, Damon Woods is heading into the woods at the moment because he's coming up on these 3 to lap them.
And Mishra's bailed out of this battle. He's actually gone into the pit lane, so I'm not sure if that's to actually make a stop or if he's got damage or something going on there. But, yeah, this battle's continuing on. Oh, there's further contact. That was nearly a Russell and Bottas moment on the run to turn 1. And neither of these two want to give an inch, and they need to be told to settle down because this is not good.
This is going to end in tears. You just know it.
Which one's Lewis Hamilton and which one's Max Verstappen? Quick, place your bets.
Both, yes. Topical. Higginson runs wide, and that's going to end the battle prematurely.
Yeah, probably a smart call, I think, just to remove yourself from that battle at the end of the day as well, because that was never going to end good. They're now getting the blue flags for the race leader, Damon Woods, who was closing up on them as well. So I'm funny feeling the stewards might want to have a little bit of a look at that a bit later on in the evening, because it didn't look... it looked like it was fair and hard for a little bit of it, and then it just got a little bit ugly.
Yeah, that's a
kind
way of putting
honestly. It's like it gapped a little bit, but now Woods is here and they're still going at it. So
no, correct. And Higginson's got Woods for company, so they're about to probably let him through on the other side of the chicane here as well.
Woods has got to be careful about flashing the lights. These guys have been flashing lights at each other, and you might see the red mist, but Higginson does a good job there, gets away. But Higginson is going to use this. He wants to use this to get back at Liccardo, get past him. He's going to take every advantage he can get by sticking to the back of Woods here. Liccardo's... Go ahead.
So I think the race director's been onto them as well, just to tell them to settle down as well. I think I've just seen a message go out to say, look, it's getting a bit silly, just be sensible, act your age, and go from there. But you're right, Higginson was trying to stay with Woods. Oh, that's a bit awkward. I think he maybe got a little bit...
Take the wall?
I think he did. I think he gave that pit lane wall a little bit of a slap on the way through, much the same way that Bagsy said that Pete Savage gave Will Devonish a slap on the arse at the Nürburgring round a couple of weeks ago, which is going down as commentary moment of the year at this stage.
Love to see it. Woods hasn't progressed through this field quite as easily as you would have expected, and that's actually allowed Rosella to take a chunk out of that gap that has been growing since the pit stops. Woods finally makes the move at Tosa, but that actually invites Higginson onto the rear of Liccardo. Not quite as easily as...
Honestly, I think Liccardo's come out of that a lot better than Higginson did.
I would agree with that statement. Yeah, he's gained quite a fair bit of ground there as well. Now he's sitting in behind his ERT-affiliated teammate in Damon Woods as they head down through the drop into Aqua Minerale, or a little bit tail happy there as well. You're right, I think the gap for Rosella came down a full second in that last lap, but it actually had ballooned out to about 8.5 seconds. He's got it back to 7.4 because Woods had some trouble processing this traffic.
Yeah, so I actually just wanted to reiterate that as well. Throughout the last few laps, Woods has been easily in the 43s, and both Rosella and Tara had been struggling out into the 44s. We saw just after the pit sequence that the gap between Woods and Rosella was about 5 seconds, and then back to Greg Tara was 3 seconds. Now that gap between Woods and Rosella, as you said, ballooned out to 8 seconds as Scott Nolan picked up a penalty. 2 penalties, in fact, from 5th place. That's going through, I think, Aqua Minerale.
Yeah, he's gone wide at Aqua Minerale, and on the X, he's done what Brendan Ross did and cut behind the sausage curbs. So that's what's done him a
That's so disappointing for Scott Nolan. That's going to put him back down in.
Jeez. Sorry, Nathan Higginson spun at Tamburello, and Luke Rosella just appeared on the scene and almost collected the rear of the Bentley.
Yeah, very, very close run thing there as well. You can see the local yellow, so we stay green for the moment. So here's Nolan serving his penalty. In he comes. So this is heartbreaking for Nolan too, because he was getting to that point where it's only 4 minutes from having to come in and stop for the final time, and he would have been able to get home. So he's going to tour this lane. It'll be a snail's pace. So that's
also he's going to have to walk on eggshells for the last half hour of his race too. And I think, did you say it was 2 penalties that came up?
2 penalties that came up, yeah.
So
so he's going to drop him to the back end of the top 10. It's so disappointing for him because he was doing quite well.
So Noah Tara's gone through, Lewis Wedding's gone through, there goes Turmo, there goes Steve Warwick. So Steve Warwick is actually going to pick up position 8 as well. He's lucky not to be on the back end of the top 10 here, because Avi Kokai was just coming around the bend.
Yeah, but he still has one more to serve, so he's definitely going to be back. There's a massive gap behind to Dane Liccardo though, so he's not going to drop any further. But
Liccardo's the first car one lap.
Disappointing for him.
Liccardo's the first car 1 lap down as well, and so Nolan won't fall out of the top 10, but he'll just be very, very limited as to how far he's actually got to go. And Rosella, I'm actually just keeping on things here. Luke Rosella is actually copying the same traffic now that Damon Woods did, but he's got it on the front straight, so he's lucky here. He's got past Taipan without a problem, but the next one's going to be Dane Liccardo. Now, you know there's a bit of history between these two as well. They talk about Scott Nolan and Will Devonish. You don't want to be in a phone box with them because they don't like each other. It's fair to say there's been a few comings together between these two over the course of time, and this is blue flags for Liccardo, and he needs to let that go, and he agrees to do so.
And Liccardo must have something against Porsches because he's been racing the Porsches very hard today when they've tried to lap him. First Lewis Wedding and now Luke Rosella. He just doesn't like people whose names start with L as well.
I don't think he was actually trying to race Rosella. It looked like he was getting out of the way through the last part of Tamburello and then decided,
Noah Turret in the pits.
Ooh, that is interesting. That is early for Noah Turret.
That's actually two laps, or actually it's a lap earlier than expected. Remember, he came in on lap 16, and he's only gone 16 laps again when everybody else has been able to get 17 laps out of a tank of fuel. So this is, very, very early. He's going to have to splash and dash this at the end at this rate. He needs a safety car.
Higginson penalty.
Higginson penalty as well. So this is starting to see some walking wounded at the moment.
Scott Nolan has not come in for his second drive-through. Hopefully he knows that there were two that came up there. But he's under pressure from Xavier Kokai as well. Because if he doesn't serve that in the next couple of laps, he will be disqualified, and that will be even more annoying.
And have a look at this train as well, by the way. 6, 7, 8, 9 all in a row. Turmo through to Warwick, Nolan and Kokai.
It's all coming back together as we come up to the pit stops. So this is going to be a very crowded, very busy pit lane.
Definitely is. And it's Turmo, Warwick, Nolan, and Kokai in there as well. Keeping an eye on Damon Woods because he's now got to that critical lap 34 and he's been pushing on. Like he's been doing consistently, 43s and, that last lap was a 44 flat. So he's probably expected to be in this lap, if not the lap after.
The one thing we did mention at the top of the broadcast, there, he hasn't go. Oh, he's made it, hasn't he? He has.
He got the job done. Got the pass done.
It's very well done from Nolan.
So,
we mentioned that there is the initial lap out from the grid as well that they don't have to account for in these stints. So probably it's not a full lap obviously, but that third or half a lap can be the difference between going an extra lap or not in the stint.
And remember as well, it's +1 lap at the end. So as we tick over 30 minutes left, there's still a question mark whether or not this race will be 51 laps or 52 or maybe even 53. We're not quite sure yet. As Dane Liccardo gets a drive-through penalty, and that would be for track limit violation.
Down. Yep, that is down at Aqua Minerale. So a few drivers falling foul at that part of the circuit. It's a part of the course where you sort of get sucked in a little bit to really taking a bit more speed than you ideally want to. A number of drivers try and carry the brake through the corner so they don't put that huge full application in, as here comes the race leader. So 34 laps precisely, so 17 laps again for Damon Woods. So it's playing the hand into Luke Rosella's favour here as he goes sailing on by. There he goes. And you've got, who else is in the lane there as well? You've got Liccardo coming in to serve the drive-through penalty.
Coming in. Greg Turret's in.
There he is, behind Dane Liccardo there. And you've got Steve Warwick leaving the lane as well, and he's just done the right thing there to feather the throttle and get going. There's Woods stationary.
And Bolger stays out. Now this is important because Bolger pit on the same lap as Turret and Woods the first stint around. So he now goes into second place, and he's got an extra lap on the rest of the field. So I think, as Nathan Higginson comes in from 12th place, I think if we go to 52 laps, Bolger's going to be fine to the end, whereas the other two...
Wedding's in.
I reckon that's a strategy play. I reckon he's thinking come in now and go to the end because he can.
Because he's only gone 15 laps there compared to the 19 he did in his first stint.
Yeah, he's got a little bit less fuel to put in at the stop here. So the fuel's the limiting factor, remember. So there's a couple of different schools of thought here. Weddings and Rosella actually share a boom. So this is a split strategy for these guys. And see, here comes Nolan and here comes Kokai, so they're done.
Turmo stayed out, by the way.
He did. So just coming back to this Porsche strategy here, Lewis Wedding putting in a little bit
Nolan's retiring. He's parking.
Yeah, so that's the drive-through penalty situation, I think, as well. So Wedding putting a little bit less fuel in at this stop, so that's going to shorten his time. Rosella is not going to have to worry about putting as much fuel in at his next stop either, because he's able to go a little bit longer. He'll probably put in a small amount just for security's sake, but
he's in now.
Yeah, and here he comes now, so he doesn't actually have to worry about. He'll have a shorter fill time, and he's not going to be fuel limited to the end here.
Now, I was
and no tyres. He's not taking tyres either. So this is this is a massive gamble for Luke Rosella.
Big play. He seems to think that he has been very kind on these tyres compared to his rivals. So it'll be very interesting. Bolger in as well. People are like, we're going to the end. We're going in now. We're not taking any extra time.
Definitely right. This is starting to all replay. I suspect Turmo will be in now. He is going to be coming in. We've got the cog symbol on the screen for the number 51 Nissan. And
interesting
then
that
Damon Woods behind.
Yeah, Damon Woods could get held up here because by maybe a little bit, because Turmo's not quite as fast as him. So, but this is for position. So Turmo's not obliged to get out of his way. So yeah, Damon Woods losing time here.
Oh yeah, and the pit lane fires off to the right here. There it goes.
Rosella's on the move and he's out of the pit lane. He's on his way now. So that is the gap as Rosella comes into Tamburello and Damon Woods crosses the start-finish line. So this is interesting here. It's worked out really nicely for Rosella because he has oodles of space ahead of him. I was concerned watching that happen because before he came into the pits, Rosella had so much room ahead of him. He could have put the hammer down and set a string of 43s, but he came in and it's worked out nicely because he has no one on track in this entire upcoming sector. But that is the gap on track. That is the margin, and it is 4.5 seconds.
I don't think it was the best decision, honestly, because he, if he'd taken his tyres, it's about an extra 10 seconds for the tyres. He would have been, I think, did we work out 10 seconds a little while ago, I think?
Yeah, ran that mark.
For the tyres.
Ran that mark so because he was about 7 seconds behind on the lap count, but then you've also got to remember too that Woods did get held up a little bit as well on his outlap.
If he'd taken tyres, he would have been, 6 seconds behind. Again, maybe call it 5 seconds behind. And I guess he's going for the track position, and the track position's king, but I don't think he's going to be able to do much with it. I think it's going to be, it's not going to cause him to fall back into the grips of Greg Tara, I don't think, because they've really gapped Greg. He's 20 seconds behind Damon Woods. But yeah, I know. It does feel like more of a defensive play than an attacking play.
It's something that only he knows how well the tires are holding on for him. The track position is king around here. There's not a lot of spaces to pass that are easy passing opportunities. The only one that we've seen with any sort of consistency is here into Tamburello. The Porsche does struggle a little bit with straight line speed, so he could be a little vulnerable here, but Rosella has done well to keep getting that good run out of that final corner. Now, I'm in the same boat as Bagsy. I'm not sure it's been the right play, but I think it's not the right play for a different reason. I think if he'd used the time that he had on track and tried to make the overcut work, set 3 or 4 really fast laps in the 43s rather, to really try and put the hammer down and try and stretch that advantage, I think that would have been better, because then you have a shorter run to the line. I'm not sure. It's 24 minutes left in this race. It could go either way. The gap is less than 3 seconds now, so Woods is taking plenty of time out.
Yeah, if you disregard the first sector, because that includes some of Luke Rosella's pit time, he lost 7/10 in the middle sector and another 3/10 in the final sector, just in his outlap. So yeah, it does feel like this is sort of just surrendering second place and maybe, I guess, ensuring a third place, but I think he would have had a much better chance if he'd got fresh tyres.
I'm not so sure it's surrendering, because apart from the first end of the race, we haven't really seen the pace from Rosella in the same way. That entire middle stint, he was very much off the pace, and that's why the gap blew out from 3 seconds to 7 seconds or 8 seconds or whatever it was. I think this is a play to at least make a fight for it, make Woods fight for it. because you are able to defend around here. You are able to position your car well and make it difficult to pass. And if Rosella had taken tyres, he would have just been 5-6 seconds behind Woods and probably not going to be able to get that time back over the course of the stint. So at least in this instance, he's making sure that Woods has to win the race and actually take it from him rather than just surrendering it with track position.
Yeah, that's a fairly good call there, I think, as well, Flood. And the other part, the thing that I need to look at here too, is the outlap wasn't so much of a problem. The outlap, compared to everybody else, was on a par with what it is just coming out, just rolling out of the pit lane, regardless whether you've got tyres on that are brand new or not. It was pretty much the same as everybody else. It's the latest lap that is now going to start to be the deciding factor. It was a 44.7 compared to Woods' 43.8. Now, considering that Woods was in the high 43s and low 44s for the majority of his last stint with brand new tyres on, I get the impression that you're correct here. You're looking at Luke Rosella making a defensive play, forcing Woods to burn the fuel and use the tyres up to the point where he then needs to make that splash and dash at the end. He's going to try and defend here and defend, but Woods can just sit there if he wants to. He can just actually just sit there behind Rosella and doesn't have to pull the trigger until a couple of laps from home. So this is actually going to benefit Woods here, I think, if he decides to sit back and play fuel save game for a couple of laps.
That was my thinking, in that if you take tyres and you're forcing, like, Wood, you can continue pushing full throttle. Woods probably has to save a bit to make it to the end, and potentially you can strike then on equal footing. Whereas here, I think he's either going to go past Rosella and just wander off into the distance and give himself enough of a gap where he can still save, or he's just going to sit behind him for a while and make his move later on when he knows he has the fuel in reserve to be able to push. But I feel like it goes a bit wide there. I feel like it's going to be a arrive, pass, and disappear into the distance sort of scenario.
That's what I'm fearing as well, Flood.
Yeah, just for a bit of context here, the lap times last lap around, Luke Rosella 44.65, Damon Woods 43.6. So a second a lap is not a good equation if you're Luke Rosella. But as we always say, catching is one thing, passing is another. So Rosella has the chance to play a bit defensive, and I think it will greatly depend on whether or not we get a 51 or a 52 lap race. If we get a 52 lap race, I think Rosella will be able to hold on, simply because Woods will have to save an entire lap of fuel. And I'm not sure that he can do that just sitting in the slipstream. But either way, we get to find out what happens over the next 20 minutes, and that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good 20-minute race to go here. There's actually been a fair couple of changes of position through the last 5 or 6 laps or so. The latest one just happened on the lap just gone. Xavier Kokai getting past Turmo, who was just starting to range up onto the back of him. And I fear that was through a mistake that Turmo made on the last lap. It's allowed Kokai to slip into 7th place. That's actually a pretty well-measured drive from the back of the field, all things considered. And he also did have a penalty to adhere to from the last round at Nürburgring, with clash we caught on camera with Lewis Wedding, and the stewards reprimanded him for that one. So this has been a good return to form from that penalty, and a good comeback.
Turmo's going to have a go in Peritella.
He is, and he gets the nose fairly and squarely up the inside there, and they can run side by side on the exit, but Kokai will have the high ground for Aqua Minerale, and
Turmo doesn't care.
No, they're putting the squeeze job on each other, and they all come out the other side. And Turmo, well, he has the drive here. I think he's just got enough drive to hang on here. But
is Kokai going to be brave on the brakes?
No, he's not. Now these two have got a bit of history as well from Super 2. They've come together a couple of times and had a few door handle to door handle bit of racing as well. So they're already intimately familiar with each other. But that was big squirm, and great decision there by Turmo to sidestep the argument. Great situation, Luis. Oh, there's carnage behind as well. Higginson, I think maybe Kokai may have been.
Safety car.
And the safety car is going to be called for. It is. This is it. It has happened. The safety car has been called for. We're going to take a look at this one on the replay, because there was something that happened here that caused this, and this nullifies this race, and this now, I guess, takes the air out of the race. Look, it's a Kokai was just seeing his praise. He just threw the gravel trap there. And he's tried to merge back on. Oh, and then whacked straight by Higginson. So that was the end of that chapter.
Rosella's come in. Rosella's come in. This is huge. And he just made a mistake that last lap at Aqua Minerale. I was on board with Damon Woods trying to figure out if he was fuel saving. Rosella made a little mistake and ran a little wide and looked very
the pits are closed. This is a problem. The pits are closed. So he can't stop. He needs to tour through. This is a disaster. He's just realised as well that he can't make that happen. If he stopped, he was going to get a penalty. I was about to say, where's the third place car in Greg Turra? So he was miles ahead of Turra. But the problem was the pits were closed.
Wow.
Big mistake for Luke Rosella.
That is
unfortunate for Rosella. I mean, it wasn't going to make much difference, let's be honest, because just before the safety car came out, he was being lined up by our race leader in Woods. So it's much of a muchness. He's just made it a little bit easier. But Woods was probably going to be past him before they got to Tamburello after the safety car restart, let's be honest. So this will just change that a bit. What it has done, though, is means that Luke Rosella, who wasn't going to be under threat from Greg Turra, is now going to be under threat from Turra, Bolger, Noah Turra, Lewis Wedding, Termo, Warwick, all people who took tyres at their last stop. This is why... We didn't mention it, but this is why you take the tyres in this scenario, because now you are not in a happy place whatsoever, because there are still 15 minutes left, and Woods doesn't have to worry about fuel anymore.
Yeah, that is the big deal. Woods not having to worry about fuel, saving fuel now, and this likely means that the race will be shortened by at least one lap, just because we're not going to have the time to get those extra laps in. That's really going to give this race...
The pits are open this time round, correct?
Correct, they are. This is a problem.
He should still come in, because at the moment, fourth place,
Steve Bolger he'll lose a spot to Greg
Turra.
He'll
lose it to Turra. He'll lose it to Bolger. He probably won't lose it to Noah Turra, and so that would, because otherwise he's probably going to get passed by all of these guys. So he has to take the pain now and push forwards, because otherwise he's not gonna. Yeah, there he goes.
There he goes. Yeah, so he's taken the gamble now, and he's got no choice. So it didn't matter whether or not if he took the stop if the pits were closed and he toured through, but he didn't lose. The only thing he lost was
he might lose
it
to.
He's going
to lose it to Noah Turra and Wedding as well, because they're actually coming out of Rutzer 2 at the moment.
Yeah, here they come. And Wedding's coming in as well. So did Wedding not take tyres at the last stop either?
He did, but he's going for freshies. He wants to be able to try, because he was so close to those guys, and the next person behind him is still coming through Ravatza now in Termo. I know he's not. He's going past the pit entry, so he's only losing one spot here to Termo, but he knows that he can pass Termo and a couple of others. So actually, Luke Rosella's lost the spot to Termo as well.
Yeah, so Rosella's come out in 6th place overall after that, so he's lost positions to Greg Turra, Steve Bolger, Noah Turra, and Termo.
Wedding's actually lost position to Warwick as well.
Yeah, and Steve Warwick's got through. But Steve Warwick took tyres at the last stop as well, so that's a legitimate change of position with Steve Warwick coming in. And there's not Wedding. Wedding's just coming down to Tamburello now, so there's a little bit of work for Wedding to do there. But I think you're right. These guys have now got fresh tyres. The question is, can they process the traffic quickly enough to get anywhere near the podium? That's the big $64,000 question, because there's just under 14 minutes left, and there's going to be at least one more lap of safety car to go before we go back to green flag. There's always 2 laps, and then possibly 1 or 2 more depending on the situation. What does Greg Turra do with this situation, guys? Is he in a spot to have a lunge here at the restart?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I think we all had the same thought at the same time.
Yeah, forget about Steve Bolger behind him, and forget about the championship battle. This is a chance for Turra to really stamp his authority on this race and this series. He was a bit blue earlier on in the practice session, a bit lamenting the fact that he didn't quite have the pace of Woods, but he's shown that he has the pace to at least be on par. So this is a great opportunity for him to jump into the mix now. And just a note on processing the field. Sorry, Bagsy. It's not just the cars in position that Rosella has to worry about and process through, but it's all the traffic as well. You've got in there, you've got Brian Walsh, you've got Dane Liccardo, you've got Taipan. It's so many cars that he has to worry about before he can actually strike at the front few. I
was gonna say that I think the opposite. I think Greg Tara just has to play it safe, keep Bolger. We know this series is about consistency. He just needs to keep Bolger behind him, get the points today. Don't be like Max in Silverstone and get into an accident with your championship rival. Just keep ahead of him, or if needs be, let him go and lose less points then, because you'll lose a minimal amount of points here compared to if you DNF or lose a bunch of positions. Because if you lose positions now, there are so many people behind you that are going to pass you. You're going to drop down to probably 12th, and there is only 10, probably 9 minutes left by the time the safety car ends. You're not going to be able to make that back up.
Yeah,
so
there or thereabouts, you're right. And
play it safe.
If we have a look at the point standings as well, you've got to think about it this way too. Where Greg Turret is, he stands to gain 5 points on Steve Bolger. Remember, coming into the night, they were separated by 15. There is still 4 rounds to go. The point allocation for a 90-minute race is the winner gets 50 points, the second place man gets 45, and the third place man gets 40. Damon Woods is not in this championship picture at the moment. He would gain 50 points on the guys ahead, but then they would only minimise that deficit to 40 and 45 respectively. So by finishing ahead of Steve Bolger, that's good for Greg Tara's championship, because it closes that margin down at the top to just 10 points heading into the sprint round coming up in a couple of weeks' time at Magny Cours, which is another track that hasn't been on the calendar since 2018, and the first of a French double-header, because after that we head off to Paul Ricard. So there's a little bit of a trip through the French countryside and the French Riviera, and I'm sure a little bit of wine to boot. But in the point of Greg Tara, he just needs to finish ahead of Steve Bolger in the next 10 3/4 minutes, and he'll do his championship a very, very good favour indeed.
Just a quick note, we've had Scott Nolan jump into the live chat. Hi Scott, sorry to see you DNF from this one. Saying that it's a silly stop from Luke because the tyre wasn't so bad and he sacrificed a lot of track position. I tend to agree, actually.
No.
The reason being that Luke on an old tyre is still better than most of those guys behind him. Noah Taro, Tomo, Steve Warwick, they've got pace, but they don't have Luke Rosella pace. Maybe he needs to Greg Bolger.
Noah Tara, Bolger and Greg Tara all had the pace to potentially unseat him, and the only one of them he's behind now is Temo and Warwick. So I think it's still a net positive move, because he most likely would have lost those positions.
It's a lot of track position. It's a lot of traffic as well as the safety car pulls in. We will find out how it all plays out with the last 10 minutes remaining. It'll be Damon Woods that leads us away. He takes us to the line. It's a long way to get to the line here. You can already see some of the traffic looking to get out the way as the flag goes green, does it? And we're away again.
It does now. And Woods hits the gas, and look at this. Cars, 1, 2, 3. There's some...
They're tripping over each other to get out the way.
No, there was some lap traffic trying to get out the way, and I think a few drivers were trying to sort themselves out with the lap traffic. The top 3 are cleared away. Here they go. And then a bit battle further behind, you've got Noah Tara, and Termo's having a last bit of a lunge in the last 9 minutes at Noah Tara. He wants 4th place. And then Steve Warwick has gotten ahead of Rosella after all of that before the restart happened for 5th and 6th and 7th. And it's all kicking off behind. You've got 2 groups. You've got the lead trio, and then you've got everybody else.
And it's good that all those GTRs have jumped out of the way. Great work by the lap traffic to get everyone in their suitable position. Luke Rosella around the outside of Steve Warwick at Tosa. Is he going to make it work? He's got on the power quite nicely. He's got his nose in front, but he's on the wrong side as they head into Piratella. Can he get the overlap done? He does.
Yep. Warwick cleared the throttle. Warwick cleared the throttle, I think, there, guys, to let that one happen. So that's good, smart driving now down the inside of Dane Liccardo. The lap traffic quite quickly Luke Rosella making up hay while the sun shines almost in an instant right onto the back of Termo's rear wing, coming up out of Aqua Minerale. Is he going to have a stab down here at Variante Alta?
Further up, Greg Turra and Steve Bolger almost side by side through Variante Alto. David Woods already cleared out 3 or 4 car lengths from this battle, and then it's this group of 3, Noah Turra, Termo, and the moving figure of Rosella's blue Porsche as he comes right up to the rear of that Nissan GTR as they file down the hill and into Ravazza. Is that Rosella taking a look? Yes, it is. Gets the nose tucked in and straight through.
I wasn't sure there might have
tyres.
There might have been a little bit of a touch there. I'm not sure if Noah Turra had a sideways moment coming off of Ravazza 1 as well. But look at this.
Look at the drive Rosella's getting off the corners now compared to the others. There's not that much difference in his tyres, but he's just absolutely flying.
He's going to be wringing the neck of this thing. He's going to
big slipstream though.
Down the inside here. Termo got a slipstream as well, so Rosella's got to be really careful here down the braking zone for Tamburello. This race has come alive in the last 9 minutes for honours here at the 90-minute race of Imola. 10% of the race to go, and who would have thought it would have been tooth and nail fighting. Noah Turra covering the line off, almost 3 wide with Termo being brought in there as well. I think Rosella's best opportunity is down here at Toast. He's just got to throw the dummy one way and then back the other if he can make it work, and he doesn't get it done. And he can't wrap the long way around at Toast because Termo's right there as well. Threads the needle almost perfectly. Is he in position for Piratella? No, not quite, but look who's buying into this now. Here comes Lewis Wedding.
Also on fresh tyres as well for Lewis Wedding, remember, as Termo gets... He's got to go around the outside of Termo Piratella. How has he made that work? He hasn't. He's off in the grass, off the weeds.
Yeah, Wedding.
He drops back down.
Yeah, he got really wide on the offsuit of Piratella there as well and just had no option. A fistful opposite lock, had to bail out of it.
Termo's got a brilliant run out of Aqua Minerale though.
And he's going to go straight down the inside to Variante Alto. Unless Rosella can fight back. No, he can't. So that's, again, Rosella getting caught up in this battle and dropping it down to 6 once more. This has allowed the top 3 to clear out, and they've cleared out from each other as well. They've put in a second of a gap into each other, so they're not really fighting for position. It's Termo now who looks the racy one as they all range onto the back of Noah Turra.
Yeah, here they go again. So start lap 46 in the what's round number 3 or 4 we're up to now. Lap
ding,
3,
ding.
Lap 3 since the safety car went in, and Termo and Noah Turra, these guys have had a go at each other a couple of times throughout the night. It's been very, very clean and very, very fair. And Termo's going to try the Dane Liccardo trick. He's going to go the long way. He's got a foot in the grass, and he somehow manages to get it stopped. And Noah Turra covers off the attack, and then there might have been a bit of a touch there from Rosella as he got on the brakes for the second part of the corner as well. Wow,
Licorice straps from Termo. He's got the inside now to Villeneuve. Can't quite get it done, but Rosella throws it down.
Just shoves him out.
That was
unfair. Rosella's pulling off to let him through.
Stopping to redress the position as well. It's a smart thing there.
Him so many positions.
That has, and that takes him out of he hadn't cleared the traffic quickly enough anyway, and hadn't cleared the cars on the same lap as him quickly enough to really have a good shot at a top 3 finish there either. And Lewis Wedding's looking really racy as well, gives Noah Turra a little bit of a love tap in the middle of the rear bumper for good measure through Piratella as well. So the cars on fresher tyres have got that advantage, but they haven't been able to fully capitalise on it. But here's the next option. Can he get it out of the corner there, out of Aqua Minerale, and then go the long way round the corner here? No, not quite far enough alongside there. I think that was always going to be Noah's corner.
Here go with the drive-through penalty as well.
And also they did go with the drive-through as well. So this is working out for Rosella, for Wedding, not so much for Rosella. But Noah Turra is proving to be the brick wall here, the Great Wall of China. Steve Warwick runs wide around the last corner, and he's going to drop a pile of positions. He's even going to drop... But hey, it's something further gone wrong there. He's just kind of pitched himself into the wall. He's now down in 10th.
Kokai alongside Termo. Kokai's got 2 penalties now. He has to serve 1 in the next lap or he's going to get disqualified. Yep. But the furthest he can drop back is 10th because Dane Liccardo is a lap down on these group, but still sticking to them.
Wedding's got a great run here. He's got a great run on the inside of Turra as they come out of Tamburello and into Variante. Villeneuve takes the high ground, gets the apex and makes the move into 4th.
It was so much quicker. It was so much quicker through Tamburello than anybody else, and now it's time for Termo to have a go on. Rosella has a lunge down the inside of lap traffic, and Brendan Ross as well at Tosa, so he hasn't given up a fight for 4th place at the moment, but that's currently held by Lewis Wedding.
I wonder, sorry Nether, I wonder if Turo didn't take tyres at the last stop, because he came out of the pits just ahead of Luke Rosella. Luke Rosella came out of the pits just behind him or something along those lines. Yeah, and he looks to be really struggling on those tyres now.
Which Taro are you referring to? Rosella? Noah Taro. Yeah, okay, there you go.
Oh, Wedding's had a moment at Aqua Minerale
yeah,
too.
He just skated off. We're just having a look at what's happening out in front, but he just skated off. He's kept his 4th place, but he's been one of the ones that's been behaving themselves with a bit of... Oh, behind Turbo and Noah Taro almost getting together at Variante Alto as well. So they've been gone settled down.
Yeah, Turbo did not take tyres.
Noah Taro
did not take tyres.
That explains why he's thrown out the parachute here from a defensive point of view. As Greg Taro sets the fastest lap of the race at 43.2, and we were watching him before. He's about 3/4 of a second behind Damon Woods here, and he is now throwing down the gauntlet in these last couple of minutes. It's got 2 minutes left on the clock and change now. We're working lap 48. We're going to get 3 more from here.
Noah Taro and Turmo and Luke Rosella all heading into Tamburello, very close in company. And Wedding not really pulling away from that much either. Wedding's done what Luke Rosella wanted to do in terms of getting past on those fresh tyres eventually. But
this
is never going to work. Yeah, Luke Rosella tucks back in, says, you guys have the accident and I'll come through and take the positions. Thank you. They decide they selfishly don't have an accident, but they're still 3 wide again coming up the hill. Skoga gets yet another penalty. Trying to set the record. No, Taro went, he's gone wide. Those tyres just giving up on him, so Luke Rosella gets the position.
Yeah, easy pickings in the end for Turmo and Luke Rosella there. Noah Taro now down to 7th place now. He's got a little bit of margin back to Ujit Mishra as well. There's Mishra about 2 or 3 seconds adrift, so if he can just hang on for the next minute and a little bit, he'll be all right. But the battle out in front, it's just edged away in favour of Damon Woods just ever so slightly here. It's out to nearly 9/10 of a second, coming down into the last 2 corners. Ravazza 1 and Ravazza 2. Greg Taro with the purple first sector, but it was offset by a bad middle sector. So almost stationed as they were.
Bolger went wide in Aqua Minerale and basically almost stopped the car I believe in an effort to not get as the fastest lap from Damon Woods there, in an effort to not get a track cut. So I'm wondering if he's on his last warning, because he got out the throttle so much there when he ran wide that I think he might be concerned about potentially popping a
He's got 2. And he's got 2.
He's only got 2? Okay.
Only 2 by my record.
Careful. He was being so careful. I thought he might have had more, but guess not.
Yeah, me too. Maybe he's just ultra conservative. He doesn't want to use them up in the last couple of laps or so.
Oh, sorry. Rosella's just gone round the outside of Turmo. He's gained the position. So Rosella up to 5th, which is about where we thought he was going to get to. So decent recovery.
Well, I fear that the battle out in front might just be settling down a bit. The gap's now a second, but the clock has gone 0. So this is 1 more lap after this one. So it's going to be 50. The predicted lap count was 50 to 53, depending on what happened. Without the safety car, it would have been 53 almost for sure. And I think maybe Damon Woods, if he can hang on and win this race, he's going to be counting himself very, very lucky that the safety car came out when it did.
So the interesting thing for me there, where was I going with this? I had something in my head. So Damon Woods responded in that last lap. So we saw that Greg Taro set a 43.2, and then Damon Woods immediately hit back with a 43.1. And it was right when Taro was looking to really wind into that pace. But he's also, Woods has gapped him to the tune of about a second, probably even more now. So Woods is going to take the start of the last lap, another fastest lap, a 42.9.
In the 42s.
Really showing that he was the one with the pace all along this race. So he's gonna
all in the last sector. 0.5 of a second difference in the last sector. So he's got plenty of fuel on board now. Fuel mileage not a problem. The safety car has done its job, And he just needs... Oh, he's skated.
Oh,
he's
he's
skated.
wide.
He's gone wide. And here comes Greg Tara. What a finish this race. He's going to go around the outside, and he's gone to the lead. And Tara's going to use the GTR as a pick.
Oh!
And it's gonna be Tara. He's gonna go through. He's through. It's just very unfortunate timing for PJ to be where he was right when the lead battle comes through. But that's now Greg Tara to the lead of the race. We're on the final lap here. It's come down to the absolute wire.
There's a second gap, and we know he can make up half a second in the last sector. Can he make up half a second in the middle sector here and try and get the pass on the final couple of corners? Oh, he's gone wide in Aquamirale. That gained him time.
They're both pushing very, very hard here as well. So I think this is just sort of the last few, kilometre or two. They're just pushing, and they're just sort of overcommitting each other. It's a half a second gap now. Greg Tara has got to defend into this last corner.
Into Ravazza, yeah.
I would be very shocked if a send does not happen here. Here it comes down the inside. Is it there? Is it late?
They touch.
I don't think he was quite there to make it happen.
No,
but
he wasn't making that. It's a drag race to the line, though. Is he going to get into the slipstream?
It comes up quick, and Tara's going to get win number 3 on the season. What a wild finish to the 90 minutes at Imola. Greg Tara at car 22 gets the job done by just over 1/10 of a second in a race we thought 1 minute ago was going the way of car 56.
The hat trick denied for Damon Woods by just a tiny little error on the last lap. Greg Tara leads 1 lap of this race, and it's the last lap.
That's the important one, though.
I mean, and I know that there was lap traffic control there, but PJ can't evaporate there, and
exactly.
He's that's just, that Damon made the mistake, and Greg picked the right side as well. That was the biggest thing. The traffic was there. Greg picked the correct spot. I mean, it's not like he could have taken the inside, really. Damon was on the outside of the corner. But still, that was it's going to be gutting for Damon there after racing pretty much the perfect race and leading up until a third of the way through the final lap. So,
absolutely.
That was not expected in the slightest.
No. Well, let's finish this up here because Steve Bowl just finished on the podium, and so he's got 40 points to his name. Now, critically, with Greg Tara winning that race, that actually doubles the advantage that Greg Tara gets out of tonight because that closes the margin front down to just 5 points. So there's a big difference there. So good on Bolger. He keeps the championship going, keeps himself at the top of the championship picture. Lewis Weddings managed to get home for 4th and Rosella home for 5th. So those guys on the fresher rubber did eventually make it work, but it was all too little too late for them. Termo home for 6, so that's another good haul of points for car 51 in the Nissan guys. Noah Tara faded to 7th. Steve Warwick, another top 10 finish for him. He's actually finished where he started, so he was right in the thick of it right up until the last couple of laps when he ran off the edge of the circuit on the outside of Ravazza 2. Urjit Mishra, that's I think been a top 10 that's been coming for a little while for him. And despite the penalties as well, Xavier Kokai was the last car on the lead lap anyway, so he's home for 10th place. Then you've got Liccardo here in 11th, and then Ross and Higginson, the last 3 cars that were a lap down. Taipan and Brian Walsh. At the end of the day, the lap traffic in PJ that was right there until the death, he'll actually get points for that finish. He's done, I think, he's done 75% of the distance. But he's actually done 44 laps, but he's just DNF'd within sight of the checkered flag. So I'm not quite sure what's gone on there. Actually, he's out of fuel from what we're seeing. So that's unfortunate for him. But guys, I thought Monza was supposed to be reserved for the wild and wacky finishes. What on earth is it with Italy? We've got another one now at Imola.
It's just something about I don't know, the country. It produces good racing. I don't know. It's just incredible, really. And we were so sure at the start of that lap that Damon Woods had done everything. He just set a 42. He was just in the zone and breaking away from Greg Tara. And just in that moment, it just all fell apart for him.
Well, here we go, gentlemen. Where do we start with this? Who are we going to talk to first? I don't know. You guys can figure it out between yourselves, and you can tell me where are we going to start, because my jaw's still on the floor with how exciting that finish was.
We'll give the top two a chance to collect their breath, and we'll start with Steve Bolger. How's that, Steve? Congratulations, a good race from you. Solid third place. Didn't necessarily have the pace of the guys up front, but a podium's nothing to turn your nose up at. How was that race for you?
Exactly what you just said. Well, didn't have the pace. The guys just drove too good. I thought I drove the pace that I was expecting to drive, so I was pretty happy with it. Doing 144s all race, but wasn't quick enough for the other guys, and not sure why Luke pitted at the end, but I take the podium as a gift.
Yeah, well, exactly right, and that's a very nice gift. Helps you maintain your lead in the championship. Talk us through that first stint. You and Scott Nolan had a very willing battle throughout the first stint. Basically, two cars connected by a bungee rope for the most of the start of the race.
The track temp went down quite a bit for the start of the race, and I forgot to look, so I had really low tire pressure for about the first 10 laps, and then once the tires heated up, then I was behind Scott, and it was just he's a tough guy to pass, so it was a nice little battle. Got through, knew I had the pace, just needed to get through him.
And that you did, setting comfortably behind the leading three, inheriting that position with the pit stop at the end of the race. Describe the feeling to me when the safety car comes out with a small amount of time left in the race. What goes through your mind when you're firstly, when the safety car comes out, but then the realization that it's going to be a mad dash to the line, and then that restart and that final dash. How do you cope with that, especially considering you're leading the championship at this point in time?
A hell of a lot of swearing when it came out because I think the other guys were comfortable. They were saving fuel all race, but I knew I was fine on fuel, so I was hoping for a really unfortunate timing of when the guys started the last lap to give me a glimpse of hope. But so the safety car didn't do much for me. But especially I thought I'd have a go at the first lap, and then the guys just drove away.
They may have driven away to a 1-2, but you still took a very nice third place. Congratulations, Steve Bolger.
Thanks, Bloody.
Bagsy, over to you.
Yeah. Okay, I see how this goes. All right, David. Well, that was such a brilliant race for you. Apart from the last, minute and 30 seconds of it, we've seen the last two races you absolutely dominate. This is probably the first one you've really had some close competition. I guess what we really have to talk about is that last lap. We saw a little bit of a mistake out of the chicane there, and then it just all seemed to go to shit. What happened?
I went into the first part of the second chicane, got a bad bounce in the curve, and it threw the car sideways. And then, yeah, unfortunately, I put it off in the dirt, and I couldn't get it back on. So Greg was able to catch back up, and then I got pinched with PJ at the hairpin, so that didn't help my cause at all. So if I was able to, keep it alongside Greg, I would have been able to keep it in front because the next corner would have been in my favor. But yeah, then I just tried that, last corner dive bomb, which wasn't a great move. I'll take all blame for it being a shit move, but yeah, not too happy with that. That was a rookie mistake.
Yeah, the rest of the race, we saw you had an initial battle with Luke Rosella in the first little stint there. And we saw he didn't take tyres in the second stop. Were you surprised to see him come out of the pits ahead of you when that happened, or were you thinking that was something he might try and give a go with?
Well, it was a bit like last round at Nürburgring where I saw Greg come out in front, so I knew there was either two possible things, which was either he didn't take tyres or he underfueled the car. And catching him, 6/10, 7/10 per lap, I knew that it was tyres over fuel. But yeah, the battle at the start was good. It was, I wanted to, once he got past me, I just felt like I had to sit behind him and save some fuel because I knew that the Porsche was better off in fuel, and if I could get within a lap of his stop, then I would be set for the rest of the race.
Were you ever going to be in fuel troubles this race, or were you able to keep it fairly pinned if you wanted to?
I wasn't necessarily, you'd say, in fuel troubles. It was more just having to go to a number and then knowing that that number would get me past the half-hour mark for a stint.
Yeah. Well, commiserations on. It's hard to say commiserations second place. You've still raced so well. and unfortunately denied the hat trick of wins as well. But very well done racing, and yeah, once again, bad luck.
Thank you very much. I'll see you guys next round.
All right, Fletty, I'll hand you back to our winner.
Yes, our race winner, Greg Turra. What a finish! What an absolutely crazy end to a kind of quiet race for you for the most part. Take us through the first two stints of the race, and then we'll talk a little bit about that last stanza.
Yeah, that was basically an exercise in restraint for me for the first 3/4 of that race. Just I knew, like as with everyone else in the front engine cars, you just had to really drive to a number to make sure you got to that 17th or 18th around that lap in your stint. And I was just having trouble finding a rhythm with how I was saving fuel. So I was like, I could see them drawing away in the first part of the race, and yeah, I just wanted to play it safe and make sure that I had the fuel. So I just sort of settled into third and just tried to. I just kept an eye on the gap to Bolger, and basically, yeah, first part of that race was just trying to concentrate, pretty much, because there was nothing going on except passing a bit of traffic.
Yeah, so you got close in the middle part of the race to the rear of Rosella, but started to drop away. And then that last part of the race with the safety car, I'll pose the same question to you as I did to Bolger. What happens? What goes through your mind in that instance where the field compresses up and you've got the safety car, and then it's a 10-minute dash to the line?
Well, I wasn't 100% sure how fast Bolger was because I figured we were all probably saving fuel. And it's as soon as I knew, well, as soon as the safety car came out, I knew we were right for fuel. So I was just game on after that, and I was just going to drive as hard and as fast as possible without chucking it in the fence and see. I basically expected Damon to drive away with that, given his pace in the last couple of races. So I was just really going to try and push hard and see what happened. And he just started to make a couple of errors here and there. I don't know whether his tyres were taking a bit to come up to pressure in that restart lap. Looked like he was ploughing a bit in a few corners, but I don't know. I just basically tried to keep with him, keep it clean. And when I saw him run wide and I saw the car ahead, I knew exactly what I was going to do. And as long as I got alongside of him, I was just going to pinch him in on PJ and then see what happened after that.
And it worked out very nicely for you in the end, it's fair to say. And I just want to say, at the beginning of the night when I was in the practice with you and chatting you seemed very down and despondent about the sort of state that you were in and your pace tonight. And you've come out the other side with the victory. Surely there must be a smile on your face now.
Oh, I can hardly believe it. Like that is, that's it's akin to doing a Bradbury almost. It feels like just sort of putting around, and then yeah, that safety car just changed everything. And I was actually surprised. I was going from saving fuel and driving in that manner to just switching it on and like going flat out. I'm glad I did all that quali practice because I knew exactly where my braking markers were to go fast.
And yeah, you managed it perfectly. Congratulations, Greg Turra. And yeah, we'll see you at the next round.
You certainly will, Floody. Cheers, mate.
There was our top three, and that brings the championship picture much closer at the top. I believe it's now only a 5-point gap between Greg and Steve at the top of the championship. And wow, what a way to finish the night of racing, guys.
Yeah, you're spot on there, Flood. It is a 5-point margin heading into the sprint round coming up at Magny-Cours in a couple of weeks' time. So we have a look on our calendar with only 4 rounds left in the championship. It's fast running out of time here for everybody to do what they need to do. So the 21st of August, so 3 weeks from now, we head into the middle of France for the Magny-Cours round, and then the 18th of September concludes the double header in France at Circuit Paul Ricard, which will be the 70-minute encounter. And then left on the radar, then actually there's the biggest gap of the season from the 18th of September through to the 30th of October. There's a big gap for the Enduro Cup stuff that's going on for supercars. And then we get down to the ever as wild and wacky as tonight circuit known as Autodromo di Monza for the last of the 90-minute rounds. And then we finish off under lights at Bahrain on the 20th of November. So 2 sprint rounds, 1 70-minute round and 1 90-minute round to go. And the championship picture slowly starting to take shape. So Bolger and Tara 1 and 2 at the moment. Curtis Igmanis or Termo and Noah Tara 3rd and 4th. Wedding is still 5th, and his 4th place finish helps him close in a little bit on Termo and Noah Tara. Damon Woods has moved up to 6th place overall with his 2nd place finish tonight ahead of Steve Warwick. And then Luke Rosella in 8th, Nathan Higginson in 9th, and Urjit Mishra with his first top 10 finish tonight has actually moved ahead of his AAR teammate in Lime Mitch into 10th place in the standings. So tonight was also more about the movers and shakers than anything else, gentlemen. There was plenty of moving and shaking going on the track and in the standings order as well.
Yeah, it went all over the place and in ways we really did not expect. And another cracker of a finish here in Italy.
Well, all I can say is I can't wait till we get to Monza and it's still 3 rounds away. So I'm very interested to see what the next couple of rounds throw up. Flood?
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting period of the season. Of course, in conjunction with this all happening, there's going to be the supercar enduro as well. So a lot of drivers will cross over into that. Having their enduro practice with stuff like this, it's going to be it's exciting stuff. Exciting stuff. GT3 racing strategy always seems to throw up something exciting.
It does. And that's where we will leave it for tonight because it's been an exciting finish to what otherwise usually is a dull Saturday night for a lot of people. So thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye for now.